Okay, sorry about that. So this first slide is just the introductions. If we can go around the Zoom meeting real quick and have everybody just introduce themselves. And if you're here on behalf of any organizations, name your organizations, and then just really why are you here? If you are here for the first time, what sparked your interest? What are you hoping that maybe you think that this coalition is here to accomplish something, and you're hoping that it is certain things. So tell us what you hope that this coalition is going to accomplish in your mind. And just some quick housekeeping. This call is being recorded. And as soon as we get through going around the call, we'll come back to this slide. So I'm going to turn off my screen share for a minute. And if you would like, if it's easier, I can just call people. Ivan, yes. I was looking at your name thinking, is it pronounced Ivan? See, now I've got it. The Spanish version.
Yeah, now I got everybody calling him Ivan.
Ivan in my head. Would you like to go first? Because you're just top left in my screen, if that's all right with you. You look frozen.
He does look frozen.
All right, I'm going to skip to John. Hi, John.
Okay, hello. I'm John Hardy. I'm a Louisville attorney. I'm a member of the Alliance. Gay asked me to be here today to talk about the process for setting up a 501c4 tax-exempt corporation for, I think the name was Coalition for the People's Agenda.
It's a possibility. This should be for last. But yes, that is one of the things that I felt that we needed to discuss because the work we're doing is considered lobbying. And the Kentucky Alliance currently has a 501c3, and that could be put in jeopardy if we lobby without the proper tax status. So just something for us to ponder at the end of the call. And I appreciate you coming on, John. Yvonne, would you go next?
Hi, I'm Yvonne Rivera. I am a JCPS school teacher. All three of my children are proud products of JCPS. Say, cheer on, say, go JCPS.
Go JCPS.
And I'm the last remaining founder still associated with JCPS Lead. So I guess I'm the founder now. And I don't know what else I am. KEU and Dear JCPS and a bunch of other crap. Anyway.
Why are you here?
I'm here because I think we need a coalition that is, I'm going to be very politic, that is more forward thinking and responds faster than a sloth.
All right, I'm going to keep going down my screen. Ivan.
Okay, I was about to say I can go now. Sorry, I think I cut out right when it was my turn to go.
That's all right.
But my name is Ivan. I'm here on behalf of Black Lives Matter and Police Free Schools. And I wanted to sort of be on the call today because I am a former teacher as well. I taught at an alternative school for a couple of years. One of the few schools that did restorative practices regularly, I believe one of the 30 or so. And, you know, I'm here as a proponent of restorative practices, restorative justice, and what that looks like in the classroom. And, you know, also, I'm, you know, just here because, you know, I want to, you know, I'm a big proponent of equity as well in JCPS. And, you know, I'm just wanting to get some more information and soak up as much as I can.
Welcome. Greg.
Greg Titchener. I am I'm the Louisville Shown Up for Racial Justice rep with the Kentucky Alliance, but involved with a number of organizations around town. I'm a long-term public education proponent. I think it's the key to future for, well, period. And so I'm here to to see what I can contribute to making a better future.
Thank you. Danita.
I'm Danita Wright, and I'm a former interim chair of the Kentucky Alliance, but right now I'm with the Coalition for West Louisville Neighborhood Associations, sitting in to get information. We're also working on education, and possibly want to come up under the umbrella and help, make a stronger voice for equity for all children.
Thank you for joining us. Carla. Carla Robinson.
Yes, I'm Carla Robinson, and I sit currently on the 15th District PTA. I'm one of the District 1 VPs, and I am here today really just to gain more information, to see where the PTA can possibly help to join in making sure that our voices are heard and that we have a stronger community of true believers in equity that can help build a better JCPS.
Excellent. We're glad to have you. We have a special guest here today. Joe Marshall is one of our JCPS school board members. Hi, Joe.
Hey everybody, how's everybody doing?
Good.
I am Joe Marshall, District 4 representative on Jefferson County Board of Education. And I'm here today with this invitation from Gay to join in on this meeting because I do believe in public discourse, and I think there's no progress unless everyone who's represented is at the table and ears are open. I know as a former JCPS employee, there were times where I felt like I would say things and nobody was listening. So when I was elected to the board, I vowed to change that. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I see somebody listed as family. I'm not sure who that is. I'm calling on family.
Hi, I am Bobby Jo Kingery. I am also with the 15th District PTA. I am also here with Carla. We are here to see if what we can bring to the table. We are wanting to bring our voices out to be heard. We want to be diverse, and we want to work with other organizations to be with all kids. And we want to see what we can do to help other organizations to get out there and work together with you guys and see what we can do to be transparent.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, I'm just going to keep following my little pattern here. Tyra. Okay, there she is.
Here I come. Yes, Tyra Walker. I'm tired, you all. I don't know if it's jet lag. I don't know what it is. But let me sit up so I can be more professional. I do apologize. Tyra Walker, one of the co-chairs of the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. Also JCTA, elected JCTA recording secretary. Or I think I said that wrong, but you all know what I mean. It's close. I just got the words mixed up. And I sit on several committees, also newly appointed to the Juvenile Justice Oversight Council. And I'm here because I want to strategize on some changes to be made that is going to be conducive for all, and especially our disenfranchised students, and that's our Black, brown, poor. So that's what I'm here for.
Absolutely. Dr. Johnson, Kimberly Johnson.
I'm Kimberly Johnson, and I am an educator for JCPS. And also I work with Gay on numerous projects. And I'm here because I have a passion for equity and social justice. And I want all kids to be treated right in our system.
Nicole Finley. Nicole.
I am Gay.
How are you? You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there you are.
Okay, hello everyone.
Hello.
I'm here to basically advocate for having more Black voices at the decision-making tables for our Black kids. I'm here, number one, as a parent. I've had 4 kids to come through JCPS. I've got 2 kids who are still in JCPS. 2 of my children had a very unfortunate situation, whereas one of my children is still seeking therapy because of some of the outcomes of things that have happened to her personally within JCPS. And rather than to continue to be silent or to kind of put that experience up on the shelf, I thought that it's more important for us as a family to be more proactive in trying to find ways to make sure that there are people who look like us at the table when making decisions for people who look like us. So that's just what because we found out in the process that there's not a lot. And as a mom, before anything, I think it's important as an educated mother with 4 degrees and a fine husband who is educated for us to not have had any say in how those experiences, how those protocols, how those policies were being adopted. I think that is one of the primary reasons why there are more and more kids, middle class, upper class Black kids, who are just experiencing that racial trauma, that isolation, those microaggressions, all of that. So I just want to come into this space. Gay invited me, but primarily for me as a mom is to figure out ways that we can bring more Black voices to the table to advocate for our kids in very proactive ways that are not dramatic and very inclusive.
Awesome, thank you. And I think I covered everybody. I'm Gay Adelman, and I am also a Kentucky Alliance board member. I've been attending Kentucky Alliance Education Committee meetings for probably 4 or 5 years, I guess. And I'm also co-founder of Dear JCPS, which is an advocacy, parents and teacher stakeholder advocacy group that has been demanding accountability and transparency from JCPS since 2015. And I'm going to share my screen again. Oh, and I'm here because I feel like with this pandemic and the movement for Black lives and decisions that are currently being made at the district level around student assignment, as well as this tax increase, and with Jefferson County being a model urban district for our country and being poised to make some meaningful change during this moment in our history. I really feel like it's a now or never type situation. And so I'm here because I want to see the community come together around a list of demands that we streamline and present to the district around student assignment and around the tax increase, specifically to improve education outcomes and opportunities for our Black and our West End students in particular. So I'm going to share my screen again. This is our 3rd Zoom meeting for the Kentucky Alliance Education Committee. We've been meeting weekly on Mondays at 4:30, so please put this on your calendar and make this a regular part of your weekly routine because time is short, as I mentioned. The Kentucky Alliance is the home of the People's Agenda. This is a hodgepodge screenshots of the brochure that front and back of the brochure that was made back in 2002 when the People's Agenda, the Coalition for the People's Agenda formed. It was around the time of the city-county merger, and many marginalized voices were being shut out as part of this process of the merger of the more powerful white business elites taking a stronger position in metro government. So the Kentucky Alliance formed this Coalition for the People's Agenda and set out 8 different areas, and Danita and several others on the call probably can fill in better historically some of the information than I can, but I just wanted to share this brochure screenshot with you and point out that education is one of the 8. So at our first Education Committee meeting 2 weeks ago, we decided to take back a recommendation, a motion to our board, the Kentucky Alliance main board, and recommend that we work on revising the education component of the People's Agenda so that we can place similar demands on JCPS as we have been placing on Metro government, and to address the JCPS budget in our overall People's Agenda document. Before I move to the next slide, does anybody want to make what I said make more sense? Because I may not have done the best job explaining
I
it.
just wanted to clarify one thing, Gay, and that is one of the, I mean, 3 of the points in there in the original People's Agenda are education. I mean, there's already, gosh, I'm like Greg and Tyra. I'm so tired that, my mouth and my brain are connected by such a thin filament at this point. But what I'm saying is, it's not like we're starting from scratch. There's already stuff in there about how without education, the future's pretty bleak.
Yes, and I think historically our attention has been focused on Metro government and their role in education, but between the city budget and the district budget and the division of the responsibilities, it makes sense that we have a specific list of demands for our district leadership in addition to our demands on Metro government.
And I just wanted to let John know. John?
Yes.
The People's Agenda has 9 components to it. This Education Committee is one of them. But I think all the components need to be 501c3-4 because they all need lobbyists up there in legislate, in the capitals. So this is just what you're hearing tonight is just the education component, but there are 8 other components. And did you get that, what I sent you, okay?
Yes, I did. Do you want to share that during this meeting at all? Do you want?
There are, I don't have it before me.
All right, let's see.
But
we added a 9th one last year. We held a revival of the People's Coalition, the Coalition for the People's Agenda revival last year. Danita was our interim chair, and that's when we added a 9th one. Is that correct, Danita?
Yeah.
And
but there are, out of the 9, 3 components are up and running. They just need a little bit of tweaking to them. The education component is starting out, but the others are running, but they just need the committees. They need a little tweaking on the committees, but all of them do need lobbyists. They do.
yes. And some of them intertwine, we wouldn't just be doing education committee work necessarily in a vacuum. We might be with the human rights, civil and human rights group doing some work in Frankfurt or that kind of thing. So, but in the interim and the more urgent deadline with the tax increase in the student assignment plan, education is kind of leading the way because we have a specific timeline that we are working under because the tax increase is on the November ballot. So, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time just talking about how we got here. One of the things that I would like to try to do is not spend a whole lot of time rehashing things that we've already covered in previous meetings for the benefit of the people who have been coming week after week. And prior to the Education Committee meetings, there have been other alliances that have been focused on these similar objectives. And so I'm going to kind of recap what those are so you know how we got here. Back in December, Dear JCPS and Louisville PTO, and that's Latasha Harrison. She's not on today's call, but she's been on calls in the past 2 weeks and in different committees that I've been working on with the district. We met with Dr. Polio back in December and brainstormed some tax increase strategies, and one of them was to pair the idea of And it seems like a no-brainer now, but at the time, it was, the idea is you can't, you've got the end busing mantra. You've got an entire group of people that think that we waste, quote unquote, waste money on busing. So it's a pretty simple two-step concept. You can't end busing unless you have more schools in the West End, because we don't have enough schools in the West End for the students who live in the West End to go to school there. So, that was kind of a campaign idea we had that we shared with Dr. Polio way back then. And it's kind of evolved, and like I said, is pretty much a no-brainer concept. But we were working on a tax increase strategy, supporting the tax increase and getting community buy-in back then. And then NEU and KEU, that stands for National Educators United and Kentucky Educators United. That is a national and a statewide grassroots organization that is starting up. Yvonne and Greg are on that leadership team, and probably can do a better job telling you what they are than I can. But just as a side note, it's another, and in fact, that middle screenshot right there with the red and the blue text is a screenshot from their town hall that was held this Friday night. And one of the things they talk about is the need for a national level strategy. So as a coalition, we're looking for increased revenue for our district to fund the programs that we need, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's limited to the tax increase. And so having national partners that kind of have a parallel list of demands that coincide with our local implementation of those same demands, that is where NEU and KEU come in. And also the Stand with JCPS Pledge Committee is another committee of teachers that Yvonne and I were part of. Morgan Fisher, you can see her picture in the screen. Some of the other teachers that have been, Kenyatta, is Kenyatta on the call today? I think she said she couldn't make it. Different teachers who approached us back in March or April-ish, wanted to be part of a campaign to support the tax increase and try to create a narrative that was the pro-public education narrative. And because we had the Tea Party group doing the anti-public education narrative, trying to stop the tax increase from going through. So that's another committee that met several months, weekly for several months, I should say, and kind of morphed into some of the other work that we're currently doing. And Carla needs back in. So that was another committee that has been doing some of this work. And then AFT, which is the National Teachers Union, and their Demand Safe Schools list is the black box in the background that has 9 or so demands that on our very first coalition meeting call, we all read this list of demands and agreed that we could support them. So just to kind of make sure we were all going to be on the same path moving forward, this was a core set of demands that our coalition organizations all said we could agree to and support. And many of us have done so outside of the Coalition for the People's Agenda. We have signed on to the Demand Safe Schools pledge as our own separate organization, in addition to using that as one of the tenets for the demands list that we are working from. We also have the JCPS Student Assignment Plus Coalition, which was really, again, as I mentioned, these different start and stop groups kind of kept rolling up under the umbrellas and keeping the messaging and the work moving forward. We're also doing some of this work as part of the Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools. Dear JCPS is one of 7 member organizations that is in I'm sorry, somebody sent me a message. I'm just keeping that thought process going at the same time. But we kind of hit a roadblock. We hit a snag with the Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools. There are 7 member organizations, as I mentioned, in the organization. And it came back that despite the student assignment plan not being finalized, despite us hearing from grassroots groups that are in the Black community in particular, not coming out in support of the tax increase just yet, that it was premature to move forward with unconditional support of the tax increase. And so we wanted our strategy to be around a pledge that supported a Black agenda, a people's agenda. And at that time, Dear JCPS actually has withdrawn from the Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools because the language that's being used in that coalition right now is unconditional support. And our organization, being based on transparency and accountability of the district and continuing to place demands on the district, our support for the district is hearty and supportive and some of the greatest cheerleading you're going to see, but it's still not unconditional. As a taxpayer and as a voter in this community, for example, we know that there are still things that the district can do better, and especially in this movement for Black lives, and at a time when the student assignment plan is coming up short as far as the needs of the community. We wanted to just take a more stark stance from the unconditional support, and we want to stay on the right side of history. And so that's when the Kentucky Alliance started having the education committee meetings and talking about the revival of the Coalition for the People's Agenda. And so that's how we got to where we are now. I mentioned that we need to keep an eye out for our detractors who may have different goals than we do. In addition to the Tea Party and the Alliance and AROS and other AstroTurf groups. And I have
I'm going to take exception at that. I'm still connected with AROS,
Okay.
a member of Louisville Shown Up for Racial Justice. I don't think there's an agenda to be against public education in any fashion from AROS. I do think they're slow moving, and I'm going to wait and see if they get their engine started and moving in the right direction.
Right, and I didn't mean to imply that they were opposed to public education at all. There have been several times where we tried to move forward as a coalition and it was halted by one person, and the word unconditional was used, and that was in contrast to what my understanding of support for a tax increase in our district should be right now, because we still don't have the changes to student assignment and other needs met. So I did not mean to imply that anyone who stayed on board was anti-public education. I agree, they're just slow moving. So the next slide I have, again, I just want to recap for those who are joining us for the first time, why student assignment, where we stand on student assignment and why we feel the way that we do. And then segue into a growing, bigger list of demands that if you simply make changes to student assignment by itself, they won't be enough, because they won't be enough to fix issues at the root level, and they need to be in tandem with changes to other systemically racist and structurally racist pieces of the processes in the district, for example. So this is a slide from last time that just says, why are we starting with student assignment? Just because you build it doesn't mean they'll come. West End schools are not full now. That is one observation that one of our committee members made previously. And part of the reason we think is because there is an application barrier. If you live in the West End, you have to apply to attend school in the West End. And that application barrier, I'm just going to jump to that screen real fast, is a 2.0 grade point average, 90% attendance, and no suspensions over the last 2 years. And so those barriers prevent students who may benefit from attending a school close to home from being able to even apply. So the district could be making changes to policies right now that would remove that barrier regardless of what they do with student assignment. And so this would be kind of a stopgap as a way to start making some strides in achieving equity for some families who may benefit from their student attending school closer to home. And then another demand that we had, I'll go back to this again. If we were to start from scratch and just simply say, let's assume there's enough schools in every neighborhood and everybody went to the school closest to their home, then this map would look much like all the color blocks would be about the same size, right? And that might be considered equal. So in order to achieve equitable, if you've got a part of your population that is more disenfranchised, that has a harder time getting transportation or taking off work or doing the things that they would need to do to pick their child up if they were sick or attend a PTA meeting or those types of things, you would want to create equity by making it more accessible for those families to attend a school closer to home and have those who have greater access to the privileges that somebody like myself has. I have transportation and I can travel further. That's how my son ended up at Shawnee, is because we benefited from the opportunities to travel further to be part of a really great magnet program. So in order to have equity, you would actually flip the script from what we have right now. Our plan is not only not equal and not equitable, it's reverse equity. So just to have this conversation and help people recognize the disparities that exist, we have to have this conversation. And then our concerns are that as nice as it is that the district has taken the time to reallocate the map so that going forward, the students that are assigned to schools, they have a better flow from elementary to middle to high, and it's more equitably allocated within this new dual resides area, but it's still just tweaking an already bigger picture discriminatory student assignment plan. And so our concerns are that it doesn't go far enough, and at a minimum, another option would be to not only give, sorry, my browsers are popping up all of a sudden, not only give students in the West End dual resides, but also give non-West End students a dual resides so that it's dual resides for everyone. And what I mean by that is we live in the Eastern, my family, again, I'll use me as an example. We live in the Eastern School District, which is the yellow block. And if on day one, my son could choose between Eastern or Shawnee, yes, he can apply to Shawnee, but if Shawnee had been his dual resides option, so you've got your regular resides plus a West End resides, even if it attracted 10 new students who might otherwise not have thought to even consider Shawnee, it might be a way to create diversity through power of suggestion and through more opportunities to encourage families to attend a school outside of their neighborhood, families that have more opportunity to do so. So a dual resides for everyone is one of our short-term demands, and to remove the application barrier. And I have this article from KFTC. They wrote back in September. They actually made these recommendations. These are not new today. KFTC actually made those two suggestions along with a couple others. So before I move on, Carla, I know you and Bobby Joe are this is your first time on the call too, and Joe Marshall. I want to pause for a minute and see if either of you guys have any questions about what I've presented so far.
No, the 15th District PTA, we had an opportunity to speak with Dr. Polio and the team on this student assignment plan. And those were some of the questions. Everything that you pointed out were some of the same questions that I and others pointed out and had questions over. But again, as I've told you many a times, sometimes talking to JCPS, you could say anything. Like I could say, okay, so why are there no dual reside options for East End? Like, why is there not a group of East Enders that are sent to Shawnee? And we get this answer that seems very valid and very, thought out, but it's the answer from JCPS. It's never, I'm never able to really dive into why, when we bring up a brand new resides, and I was not able to get an answer of why did we start this process for this process to look dang near identical to what it was before.
Yep.
Just a little bit closer in. So, but the answer that I received is the answer that I'm going to get. And until JCPS has a mindset and a mind shift change that says we are no longer going to depend on West End students to move and be located into East End schools, then we're just going to continue to have this. We also have the issue of West End. We don't have enough schools that even if we wanted to say we just want all of our kids to attend schools in the West End, we don't even have enough schools and enough spaces for that. So, I mean, that was where the conversation left with me, with the 15th district and with Dr. Polio. And so at this point, I don't foresee once they roll it out that there would be much of a difference. The only thing that I ask for is, if this is what we're going to get, could we supply activity buses for every single student that lives in the West End and who has to attend a school outside. I'm sorry, you guys. Who has to attend a school outside, receive an activity bus that would allow their students to go back and forth and not make a requirement that they catch a bus, because that's just not safe and it's not something that can happen every single day. I also requested that same activity bus be, or the same type of transportation be allowed for parents who want to attend events like football games, who also live in these areas, such as Shawnee, and their child attends Ballard, so they can attend games. And then also making sure that any event that we have at Ballard be replicated somewhere closer, using community organizations and those buildings that are closer to in town. So that's how we left it. Okay. And Bobby Joe, you can add anything that you might want to. She may have dropped off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can jump in. There we go. I can jump in for a second if that'll help. I'm just kind of taking notes and listening. And I'll kind of go through some of the things I've heard so far and then ask some follow-up questions. So on the application barrier, can you go to that slide, please? Thank you so much. So the main concern that we're saying is that, with the new student assignment plan that JCPS is pushing, there would be a new middle school, probably 2 new middle schools built in the West End, along with another additional high school. So is the suggestion that the transfer application just be done away with in general, or we refigure the transfer for those new schools that are built in the West End community?
So this is something that others can chime in on as well, but my understanding is that it would just be to remove the application barrier for families who live in the West End. In other words, as an East Ender, my son should still have to meet transfer requirements because he already has the opportunity to attend a school close to home as his default. So students who don't have the default option of attending school close to home should be able to apply now. And that's what the dual resides will do next year, basically is remove that barrier, because you'll simply have two to choose from going forward. But that doesn't kick in until next year. So this is something that could happen immediately. And a student tomorrow who is not hitting it off with their teacher at Ballard, who lives in the West End, could simply say, you know, I think I'd like to apply to Shawnee, and not be told they can't even apply because they have a 1.9 GPA.
So in the meantime, we're saying looking at schools like Shawnee, since Shawnee is really the only resides option that's available to students in the West End. So maybe in the immediate, it's looking at Shawnee and saying, okay, any student that lives near here now can transfer to Shawnee if they wish without the transfer. So is that the suggestion?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And as a side note, just real quick, when my son was at Shawnee and I was PTA president and a volunteer within the PTA, I was always on campus the first day of school. That was something that we tried to provide extra bodies to facilitate, you know, movement of students and safety, and you know, it's a big building, so we had the parent brigade taking people from the auditorium down to the cafeteria or down to the library, depending on, you know, where they needed to go. And so I've witnessed the first day of school at Shawnee on several occasions. And what I did witness, because of this map, I'm going to go to this map again real quick, because we bust out of the West End to the different schools across town, the Shawnee resides is that gray panhandle. So as you see the black dot in the top left-hand corner, the gray panhandle isn't its immediate neighborhood either. So we're now we've bussed out of the West End, and we're now bussing back in from Portland and like the Highlands area to meet that student population, which, by the way, was never equitable. I don't know if you know the 2008 story. I'll send you the article from the Courier Journal, where all of the schools got less. The goal was to have all of the schools have less than 50% be from a high poverty, high minority, low educational attainment zip code or neighborhood, but that didn't happen at Shawnee. Every school got below 50%, except for Shawnee, which was still at 87%. So Shawnee was set up for failure the very first year the student assignment plan started. And I know the goal was to keep the schools diverse, but we never really tried to stay true to it. So even though it's a plan that is intended to diversify our schools, today's outcomes are not reflective of that intention 12 years ago, or however many years it's been. I guess it's been 12 years. So because we bust back into the Shawnee neighborhood, Shawnee is unique. It's not like Eastern. It's not like Ballard. It's not like Fern Creek when it's the first day of school. We only had 500 students, 550 students on average, and there would be 100 students show up that either thought that was their school because of how close it was to their home, or maybe knew it wasn't, but pretended to not know that convenient fact because they really wanted to go there that badly. And we would turn them away, and that broke my heart, because if students truly want to be there, and you know, we were a struggling school that needed every bit of love and support and encouragement and morale builder that we could get, and then we would turn students who wanted to be there away. That just didn't ever make sense to me. But in my conversations with administrators, I learned that it has a lot to do with our emphasis on test scores, and the fact that we would compare Manual to Shawnee every year and determine Shawnee to be a failing school because we served a different population, again, also broke my heart. And so if you simply remove these application barriers, it's not going to be enough, because it's not going to provide the supports and resources that these teachers and administrators need to be successful. It's not going to provide the exception to the rule that takes the pressure off their back so they can actually do what's best for students. So at the top of this call, I mentioned that these things can't work by themselves. There will have to be broader demands that are also met. And that includes removing the emphasis on high stakes test scores. and providing investing in those schools so that you can attract and retain teachers that are there for the right reasons and don't get beat up and burned out because we don't support them. So, you know, I know you know what I'm saying, so I'm not going to belabor that any further. I am going to jump. Did Bobby Joe have something else you wanted to say? And I didn't mean to cut you off, Joe. Did you have
No,
something?
you're fine.
Okay. Donovan's here. I'm letting Donovan in. And I think somebody else joined us too. Ed and Donovan are joining us. So I'm going to pause for a second and ask them to introduce themselves. Ed, are you with us? Can you introduce yourself real quick? Oh, and Michelle. Hi, Michelle. I see Michelle came in too.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Shantae's here. Oh, it's like we have a whole new party starting. All right, Ed looks like he's reconnecting to audio, so we'll give him a second. Michelle has been on a couple of calls with us. And do you mind just real quick giving us the why you're here? We had everybody kind of go around the room and just say who you are, who you're representing, and why you're here.
Michelle Penix, representing, I don't know who today, to be honest, but continuing to advocate for the Black students and impoverished students in our community, particularly those in West End, Shively, Newburgh, and Access. I particularly got interested with this group as we continue to fight for these hubs, these community hubs in West Louisville, in churches in particular. And I can't emphasize that enough as well, because the message seems to be that there are these community hubs, and there are a lot of people who are extending their doors to West Louisville residents and other communities for hubs, but that is not what we're seeking. The Science Center charging $225 a week is not what we're looking for. We're looking for JCPS to partner with the Black churches, some 20 to 50 in those communities, by providing substitute staff and in-kind contributions with PPE, as well as community funders donating enrichment money and supplies. We believe that that is the responsibility of JCPS, and that no community organization should have to come out of pocket to do the work that CARES money and JCPS is supposed to be doing. And then I guess I also stand as a representative with the NAACP as we look at the student assignment plan, have great concerns. I am more than impressed by the work that everybody on here has done in trying to really hone in on what the issues are. Simply for me, overlooking the plan, what I will say is, I think let's say there are 20 layers to this student assignment plan, and layer 18, 19, and 20 are, let's do what Kim Rice, the principal at Shawnee, suggests they need to make their school more diverse and more attractive. And I believe that's flipped. I think that until we make Shawnee number 1, 2, and 3, and it's not just about the $40 million renovation, but until we make Shawnee attractive, this is just a distraction, honestly, that we've been down this road before. There's a lot of talk also about whether or not, you know, this renovation is even for the Black community in West Louisville, similar to the boat docks. You know, we don't know many residents who have boats in West Louisville and who would use them in Shawnee. And so in the same way, this $40 million, we're not used to being showered with gifts like that. We always believe there's some kind of hidden agenda around that. So we'd like to know again where that goes. And then finally, yesterday, as we were riding around, we came across Lyman T. Johnson Middle School, and we just talked about its condition.
Yes.
We'd very much like to know, what is on tap for them. What will that school look like? They've been dealing with a outdated gym since they've been in existence. And if we build a new middle school, what will continue to happen to that school? What will happen to Western Middle School, the schools that are already in the West End? So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, a lot of discussions that still need to be had.
Absolutely. And I'm going to put Joe on the spot again real quick, since we have a board member on the call who might be able to respond to some of the things that you just said, and then we'll continue going around the room with the rest of the introductions, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, because that'll take us, directly into our next conversation. And I will say that I appreciate Ms. Pennick so much as a longtime principal of Mill Creek Leadership Academy and the things that she's done there. So I think that, what we are talking about is, like you said, it's equity over equality. What are we doing to make sure that we're not just putting up pretty facades, that we're not just putting something nice where people can look at the outside and say, oh, that's good. But then when we look at parental engagement, we look at student achievement, and not student achievement based on test scores, as we said, but student achievement based on, it's two things that really attract people to schools. Parents want choice, kids want programs. And so, the first part of the student assignment plan is choice, making sure everybody has choice. I also agree with, the choice should be given for east to west as much as west to east. But I think there's a bigger conversation there of the attitude towards West Louisville in a lot of parts of our city. There is a lot of discrimination and racism when it comes to ideas of what West Louisville is. And so a lot of those parents have the choice to use their personal finance and go to private school if they don't like. That's really what happened to the initial student assignment plan. There was back and forth, but East Enders decided we're not going west anymore. And, West End didn't really have a choice. So it's like you said, let's build up our West End programs. So when we talk about renovating Shawnee, it is for West Louisville, but we have to make sure that West Louisville is a part of that. I'm so proud that JCPS made sure that that contract went to a female minority-owned business and company. I think that that's another big step, is making sure that, the FUBU, for us, by us, that people need to see themselves doing the work and see themselves attached to it. So, to answer your question in a roundabout way, I would say yes. I will say, coming from a former employee of JCPS to now sitting on the board and being in these administrative meetings and talking to people in central office over and over again, the attitude is there. I think the timing sometimes isn't the best. Things take a little bit longer. There's still, by no means are we out of the woods. By no means do I think we're fully progressive district at the top now. But I do think that the attitude towards public education is shifting from how can we push our narrative to more how can we build a community of schools. So definitely, like we said, we have a lot of renovations to do. There's a lot of schools that need to be built, not only just built for today's educational needs, but I think totally rethought in their configuration and what works best for students. So I hope that kind of answers, some of that from Ms. Penix and some of the other points that were made in the slide presentation. And I think it was Carla made some statements, as far as, busing for after school activities and getting kids to different places. And so I guess, my question there is, if we mirrored programs from east to west and they had the same exact program with the same or even more and then we're going to say, let's say more supports, because we know that, certain areas are going to need more supports. Would we have the need for students to travel as far east if they could get the same, if not better, program and support in their, general vicinity of their neighborhood? So that would really kind of be my question there. If I could go to Shawnee and get the same football equipment, basketball, tech support, computers, and there was a program there that was more geared towards me, would I even consider going out east? So those are kind of my questions. Once again, I speak for myself, not the full board, but, I will say, I think we're moving in the right direction, but I do agree we do have a lot of work to do.
Very good. Shantae, hi. We kind of had a second wave of people joining us, so I'm pausing the meetings and asking you to just introduce yourself, what organizations you're with, and why, quote unquote, why you're here. Like, what do you hope that this coalition is going to do?
Hello. Hope everyone is having a good evening. I actually had to check in late. I just got off of a national call with the National Police Free Schools organizing, and I know that that was one of the demands that you all had listed. And I just wanted to jump on after that call, after receiving some, pretty good feedback. I was really happy to see that my former principal, Michelle Penix, is on here because she was a powerhouse in restorative practices. And a couple of nights ago, I had a conversation with a retired Detroit police officer that now works with the International Institute of Restorative Practices, who came in and did trainings for restorative practices when I taught at Phoenix and when I taught at Mill Creek. And we had just had some very productive conversations about what would it look like with replacing SROs with restorative practices, with replacing SROs with more mental health professionals, and I'm sure you all are aware of the conversations surrounding that demand. So I have been collaborating with a few organizations in the last few months, and Black Lives Matter Louisville is one. I'd also had some conversations with Greg with the Kentucky Alliance, and I just wanted to. I can't really say, who I'm representing because I've been working with a number of organizations. I'm also going to have to get off of here to get on a call with Build Back Better Together. I'm not sure if you're aware of the mayor's program that they are trying to implement and getting more involved with the education development. So I'm just kind of working, with who and with whatever organizations, are doing the work to amplify these demands and to get these changes made. So does that answer your question, or was there something else that?
No, that's good. That's good. Thank you. I'm glad you're with us. And we're going to try Ed one more time. I think Ed is Ed Fawcett. Are you with us, Ed? All right. Well, we're going to move on. And if he decides to chime in, he's more than welcome to interrupt me.
Can I add something, Gay?
Yes, please, Greg.
I think, Shantae, we are just now, coming around to the realization we've left early childhood education out of our demands. And I think your input will be invaluable in, trying to figure out what do we need to be asking for. And I think we do need to come up with a cost or I'd like you to help us come up with our demands around early childhood education, because for those involved with education at the elementary level, know it all starts with that accessibility to 3 and 4 year old education, and it's not equitably accessible in our city. So how do we fix that?
And NTI adds a whole new layer of complexity and widens disparities on top of that as well. So, I'm going to move on to the slide that kind of encapsulates our demands for student assignment at a higher level. And basically, it's 3 parts. It's to identify the inequities that exist in the current plan. As I noted earlier, making tweaks to parts of the plan when the plan itself is discriminatory. Making it less discriminatory is still discriminatory. So before we do anything else, several groups have requested a REAP to be performed on the entire student assignment current plan, so we can identify what those equities are and the extent of those inequities, and the harm that it has caused and continues to cause to our community, so that we can not only make it more equitable going forward.
Please, I can put this phone that's not in his playroom for right now, because he's not going to want his phone.
I don't think that was somebody trying to talk to us. Sorry about that. So we have to identify what those inequities are and the extent of them. And the best way to do that is through a REAP. And there have been pieces of the plan that have been put through the REAP, but not the overall plan. And so that is our first and foremost demand, is that it be put through the REAP. And that includes looking at, because students are assigned to different schools following a protocol, when you have disparities in those assignments and you have you move away from an equitable distribution of resources, for example, then the disparities widen. So that could include community support. That could include booster programs such as football boosters. You know, the recent donation that Ballard had to support their football stadium. And again, we don't disparage them from having that kind of support. We're not trying to take anything away from the schools that have strong booster programs. What we would like to see is those supporting resources spread more equitably amongst all of our schools, so that a Shawnee Booster Club could also raise $130,000 to donate to their football program. You know, so those are some examples that a REAP should be able to get down deeper into. Everything from the fact that some of our schools still have site-based decision-making councils with decision-making authority, and some don't. And it's usually our West End schools that have lost their parental involvement component. And when you don't have parents in the building whose voices can be taken seriously and who can organize their voices, that's another downside to the chopped up student assignment plan, is there's not as much of an opportunity to organize your voices and come out with a stronger unified set of demands. So these are barriers, whether they're intentional or not. They hold families back. So the REAP would look at everything from NTI access, who's accessing NTI, what the truancy numbers are, and create a formula. Ultimately, the goal would be to create a formula that determines a student assignment plan that gives everyone, every school, and every student the same fair shot. I'm not going to read you every word on this slide. I think I've kind of covered it. But even like the bottom one, striving to have a student mix ratio so that every school was within plus or minus 15% of the current district demographics, so that when you have a school like Shawnee that has gotten so far askew from the district as a whole, what are your options? Like one we talked about, you could assign students from east to west or from south to west, and that is certainly one option. But you could also create more of a draw at the schools that are struggling to have parental involvement and community support. And you do that through programs. You do that through investment. You do that through rebranding efforts, you know, because Just because you build it doesn't mean they'll come, as we talked about before. You could have smaller class sizes and a language immersion program that a certain, group of families would be willing to come as a group. I don't know if anybody's listening to the podcast Nice White Parents, but when Joe mentioned choice and programs were the two things that people come for, I also think they come for sense of belonging. And I'm only on chapter 1 of the Nice White Parents program, but it's so powerful because it talks about the parents. One parent alone isn't going to be willing to take that chance and move to another school. But if you had a cabal of families that were willing to come for a certain program, and then because that program exists at that school, now everyone has access to that program. I know sometimes we have to stay away from, and in fact, this should be included in our list of demands, is not just putting the programs in the school, but still having segregation within the school. They need to be integrated programs as well. And we hear stories from people. Who the program didn't have enough support, and an AP program. So then the students that lost their AP program then leave the school. So you have a school in a turnaround mode, but because it can't sustain the programs that attract parents, then you end up seeing those schools struggle. So we have to prevent those types of backwards movements from taking place. And I just let Janice into onto the call. So I'm going to pause for a second and ask her to say hello. Introduce yourself, Janice, if you will, and just in a couple of sentences, tell us why you're here. If you can. If not, I'll keep moving. Feel free to interrupt me if you decide to chime in. And before I move to the next slide, does anyone have any questions about our list of student assignment demands? I would like to add, Carla, since you're on the call, would you mind telling us, because I know I had requested I sent a request to JCPS, Open Records, asking them if a REAP had been done on the entire student assignment plan, and the answer I got back was no. They sent me, I think, 4 different pieces that the committee had done evaluations on, but in its entirety, that hasn't been done. I was told that we needed to request that from John Marshall's department. You told me that you already had done that. Do you mind giving us an update on what happened when you made that request?
Yes, so in our last PTA and Dr. Polio meeting, one of my requests was that in any meeting where there's decisions that has to be made, that DEP be a part of that meeting, so that if someone has a question on what was what happened with the REAP, what was the result of it, that DEP could be able to report on it. I will say for myself, when I asked Dr. Polio about it, he was not able to say 100% that we would get the results of all the REAPs. And that has been a request that I myself has been asking for since we voted on the racial equity policy. I also have been requesting on my own behalf is that I want to see it in person live, or they can show us through video live. I want to see it work. I want to see you put information in it. I want to see what the information that pops out looks like. I want to see how do y'all derive from the data that comes from it, or the results that come from it. How do we know what it looks like? And yet have I seen it? So if anybody else has actually seen it in person being done and can tell, what it looks like, then great. And if we can all try to request that those REAPs, any of them that has been, requested or submitted, that we have access to see the results, good or bad, the ones that we used, the ones that we didn't use. Because how do we go about it and have it if we can't have any use of it. If it's just something that's in the cloud, it's almost like the wizard. Like the wizard is telling us that something is happening, but I can't see it and I can't derive.
Right. And Joe, I'm gonna put you on the spot again. Have you seen any kind of overall REAP or a request for a REAP, or can you, as a board member, request a REAP of the overall student assignment plan, the current plan, regardless of the proposed changes?
So no, I haven't seen one. I know that when the student assignment committee was first formed, was before my time on the board. And so pretty much once I was appointed and elected to the board this past November, most of the work had already been done as far as the entry level work. What's been done since my time on the board has been the hiring of the consulting firm who was able to come up with the current presentation of the new student assignment plan. So I haven't seen a REAP. We can, basically what I'm able to do is reach out to the same people you are able to. So I can reach out to Dr. Marshall as well to ask about that. And I think a lot of people don't, understand their ability to ask for open records requests. JCPS is a public school system. You are a taxpayer. It is your right to be able to see whatever you want to see within JCPS. So I think that because it's such a large district, there are a million things going on at once. So sometimes it does take some due diligence and perseverance and just annoying certain people until you get your answer and get that information. So I think that continue to request that. I can reach out to Dr. Marshall as well, because I do believe whatever information we can get as far as how we can structure things in a more equitable manner, I think is what we have to do. So continue to request that, and then I'll send in one myself, and I'll actually email Dr. Polio as well.
Thank you. Awesome. Anyone else want to comment on any of that before I move to the next slide? Alrighty. Okay, so this next two slides are examples of future demands. The previous slide was student assignment specific, and this is broader. Hand in hand, other components need to take place in order for us to achieve true equity and true authentic, meaningful change in our district. I mentioned the Demand Safe Schools pledge, the list of demands on there we all support. Divesting in away from racist funding priorities and investing in sustainable, proactive front-end solutions. So defunding police and schools, reducing the top-heavy administration, abolishing standardized testing, finding new revenues elsewhere, the funding for the pods, trauma-informed diagnoses and restorative practices, and mental health supports for all, and specifically as we come back to school through NTI, we also need to be discussing the summer events and the trauma and the historical significance of the movement for Black Lives and everything else that's been taking place. And so incorporating that into our list of demands and mental health supports has been part of that conversation. Safe schools includes, the only when it's safe hashtag not only refers to COVID, but it also refers to culturally competent curriculum, safe classrooms and schools, safe from racist teachers, safe from testing. It involves trauma-informed care, no police, and then sex trafficking training. That is something that was added, I think, on our last call. Just teachers in general are trained to report, and sex trafficking, human trafficking is another area that if a teacher were trained to identify and report those types of situations, it's something that we wanted to include in this conversation. And the ratios, smaller class sizes, mental health counselors, art, music, and REAP to measure the key metrics to ensure equity available across all schools. So again, we talked about football programs and after-school programs and transportation. All of those types of things should also be evaluated through a REAP, because oftentimes on Dear JCPS, for example, we'll have parents come in and make a comment about something that they're doing, and somebody will go, oh, everybody does that. And quickly we learn that not everybody does do that. There are as many scenarios as there are combinations of parents and students and teachers and schools. So some schools have playgrounds and some don't. Some have books and some don't. Some have one-to-one Chromebooks and restorative practices and some don't. So all of these types of things should be kept in a matrix and compared and work to continue to strive. Keep this as a working document and continue to strive toward equity. The next slide has more demands. Ending the emphasis on high stakes test scoring and testing. Focus on needs and knowledge building in the punitive measures for low performance, attract and retain highest quality teachers in low performing schools. Protections from gentrification of West End neighborhoods, we talked about that earlier. Parent involvement, SBDM, internet access for all, rural too, like being an ally in Jefferson County also means being an ally for our neighboring schools. Again, the safe schools and COVID concerns have been something that has seen JCPS teachers acting on behalf of neighbors and allies. And internet access needs to be one of those things too. We need to, even though my neighborhood may have internet access, that doesn't mean every neighborhood does. And we need to have solidarity around demanding that for everyone. And I'd like to see hotspots in the West End, every street corner, so that if you live in the West End or you're there for business or to have lunch or whatever, you can connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot. So fully funded early childhood education, we talked about that. We talked on previous calls, we talked about all schools taking on a resides population so that there are no, they call them public privates sometimes. Every school should have some sense of obligation in their local community to take on a resides population. Calling them community schools and not neighborhood schools, because community schools also incorporates community supports and resources and investment, not just from the neighborhood population that attends, but attracts and provides the supports that community so badly needs. So Civilian Review Board for Educators, I'm going to take a minute to explain what I mean by that. First, I'm going to start by explaining some things that have been brought to our attention. And several people on this call, in fact, know what I am referring to, and that is some of the internal investigations that the district has conducted have shown to involve bias, racial bias, and it has been demonstrated that the district is not capable of conducting its own internal investigations without subjectivity and without bias. And Mr. Marshall, if you would like for me to provide you with real life examples of some of these things that I have already brought to the district's attention, I've shared with Dr. Polio and I've shared with the investigator. And unfortunately, communication from Dr. Polio has ceased as of the last month. He has not returned any of, August 7th was the last email that I sent to him, and he has not responded to any of the latest text messages that I've sent to him that raise these concerns, by the way, that I am sharing with you. So I would be happy to share with you what I'm referring to along the lines of these internal investigations. But we are seeing whistleblowers who raise awareness of racial bias in their own school, experiencing targeting behaviors. They've had lies about their behaviors manufactured and used to demote these individuals. So that's concerning. That's very concerning because there is a structure in place that protects racist teachers, racist educators, and that is part of what needs to be addressed ASAP. It needs to be safe for our students to return to school, and that includes safe from teachers who exhibit risky behaviors that put Black, brown, and poor students at risk. So a civilian review board, similar to what the Kentucky Alliance proposed for the police department many years ago, and what is conversations are around that are renewing as we speak through CAPA, and Tyra maybe or somebody else from the Alliance can speak to that more thoroughly. But a parallel type situation with the inspectors general who oversee these investigations that are not paid by the district and not compromised therefore. So. Next item I have, thank you, Danita.
Yay.
Yes.
Something a couple of slides back. You were on a roll and I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
But that is on sex trafficking. To give everyone their due, JCPS has really stepped up on that. You have an hour-long training before it begins and 3 more hours during the year.
Excellent.
So and that's in elementary. So they really, they've really upped their game on that. So that might be something you want to remove from the demands, because I really do think they're doing a good job on that.
Fantastic. I was not aware. Thank you for letting me know.
Well, we had the 3 things right before COVID. I think there was one in December, one in January, one in February, and then we were gone. I don't think there were going to be any more. It's not like they cut it off in the middle, I don't think.
Okay.
But it's a big part of their SEL education drive, which they've really upped as well.
All right. And there are organizations such as Leanne Yost's organization that will come out and train like parent groups and stuff too. So PTA, PTO might be interested in contacting Leanne Yost. She goes by Leanne the Advocate, if anyone is interested in expanding that to beyond the things that Yvonne just mentioned. One of the questions that Janice, who just joined us, is asking is what's being done about adult education. And that is a great point, because our schools need to also be providing supports for our families, for our parents. And I don't think that that's been explicitly mentioned. And I don't even know if that was Janice's point. And I'll pause for a second and see if you want to expound on that a second, Janice. If you're still on the call.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, my interest is, adult education. One of the best ways to inspire a child in the household is to inspire the adult to continue their education. And a lot of opportunities out here free that a lot of low income or people don't know about, to advance themselves in the household. And I was wondering, I know JCPS at one time had talked about contracting that out, but what's being done for their adult education? Does anyone know? I know they had an extensive one before, and then they went online with a lot of it, but I haven't heard what's going on now.
I would think if Joe is still on our call, he might be the best person to answer your question. I don't know if I see him though. I don't see him. Does anyone else on the call know the answer to that question? Any teachers or?
We need some instruction, because I teach online for Purdue, and it's a lot different than Facebook. It's not post and run. So a lot of people who maybe get into that class, if they get that far, don't don't pass because they don't know what it takes. So I'm looking at it twofold, both if you've made it through and gotten your GED, fine, but once you get there and you need to go online, how, a lot of people don't know how to be a good online adult student.
I don't know if there's anyone on the call today that can answer your question, but I will add that to our list and we'll see if we can't get that answered.
Okay.
Nicole is asking, doesn't JCPS have a collaboration effort with AMP? Is that an answer to Janice's question, Nicole? Would AMP be an adult education program?
Monica Stewart at AMP down there with David Christopher at 4431 Greenwood Avenue, right across from Westwood Presbyterian Church. They offer coding as well as, say for instance, learning how to use Excel, document training, just several different programs, and it's free. And Monica Stewart is the person who, the director of that particular part for the adult education. And as of, I do believe last year, there was a collaboration effort with JCPS, not only for the music part of it, but also as well as the adult ed.
Okay, I know Monica. I'm going to write her. She's my sorority sister. My previous discussions with her was that was primarily centered on, K through 12. If that's been expanded, I haven't talked to her about that, but I will talk to her because my understanding was primarily K through 12 emphasis.
Yeah, because I work with homeless ed as well, and several of my parents have worked with her.
Okay, I'll clarify that with her. But I'd like to see some kind of effort, and I'd be willing to be very much involved with it for the adults, either to get the GED or once they've gotten it, going further.
Yeah,
I'll talk to Monica about that.
She does have efforts. She's my best friend, but so I was just talking to her about things we could plan for my homeless families at like St. Vincent, Volunteers of America, Wayside, all those just last week, and she didn't say anything differently. So you may want to reach out as soon as possible to kind of get that schedule together, because I know that that's something that she has been working on.
Okay, I'll contact her. She's my sorority sister, so we'll see what's happening and see if we can get an adult collaboration for adult education also.
Yes, absolutely.
So I see a message from John. I think he may have already left the call. He was here to talk about the 501c4, and I didn't know he needed to leave early, so I apologize for that. I did have a slide for the 501c4, but we can have him come back on another time as well. I don't know that this is a decision we need to make today, but I wanted to get our wheels thinking along those lines. Does anyone have any thoughts real quick on 501c4, any immediate questions or concerns, or is this a no-brainer kind of situation?
I guess this question may be for Tyra. In this blitzkrieg of trainings we've had, I need to know my boundaries on political action as a teacher to where I don't get myself in trouble. Maybe Ms. Penix can speak to that, but I do feel like if we're going to be pushing this, it's probably a good idea to 501c4. I'd like to be more conscious of what I can, what I can't do, and what hours, and maybe Yvonne has this answer.
Well, and the other thing is, under Trump, they have really blurred the lines between what C4s and C3s did, because they wanted churches to endorse Trump, which under the way the law is supposed to be interpreted is illegal. Like, they can pull your C3 status. But I suspect that will change once Biden gets in. C3 cannot spend more than 20% of their time on lobbying. So I definitely advocate the C4 because begin the way we're going to have to continue as just like school. The first day needs to be what you want them to do, or you'll have trouble beating them into submission later. So I think we really want a C4.
All right, well, I'll apologize to John and invite him to come back. This summary screen kind of talks about what we would need to do to build a C4. And again, this would be something we would take back to the Alliance Board if it's bigger than education. I just think that with our tighter deadlines, we may be pushing for this sooner than the Alliance Board may have seen this on their radar. So I can work with Tyra and other co-chairs around that as well. So
I have a question.
yes.
Which you may or may not know. If we file as a C4 with the state, do we need to file with the feds too, or is that one-stop shopping?
I believe it's one and the same. 501c4 is a federal tax status, just like 501c3 is. So, but you still file with the state to be
I'm sorry, Gay.
Yes.
Were you talking to me? I apologize.
I mentioned
I don't have internet or any cable or anything right now because we had an outage. So
do you, I had a question, Tyra, that I thought you might be the person in the room with the best answer, but I'm a little confused as a teacher as to my boundaries for political activity. It was included in a slide that slideshow that I can't even find anymore. We've had so much dumped on us the last couple of weeks, but I know there's boundaries. What do I need to be aware of as a teacher to prevent any calling to the carpet for political action, I guess, is what I'm asking. Just keep it outside of school hours. Is that all I need to know?
you're breaking up a little. You want to know what
Sorry.
as a teacher do you be aware
As a teacher, we're, Gay was speaking to, pushbacks for people calling out people doing racist stuff. And I feel like I'm feeling some of that, but it's very covert. It's coming from different directions. So I want to know where my boundaries are as a teacher for what I can do for political action.
First of all, I'm sorry, you asked the wrong person that. First of all, there should not be any, but let me come out of here. First of all, because I want you to see my face if you can. There should not be any pushback if there is a racial issue or some racial tension in your building. It should never be. Because if it happens, I feel like you should call it out, and you should do what you're supposed. Can you all see me? I don't know. Yes, and you should do what you need to do as a teacher to make sure that no one feels uncomfortable, especially you teachers or students. So I'm confused about the pushback.
I've been put on a team of 4 teachers. 2 are brand new Teach for America. And the 4th is the last person I'd vote to have on my team. Let's put it that way. And so it's not blatant pushback. It's I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to do my bare minimum as my 4th teacher that has experience, and leave the rest for the team lead to take care of all kinds of crazy follow-ups with these 2 new teachers that didn't even have active email addresses until today. So that's what I'm saying. Pushback. It's covert. It's just shady. It's shady.
Well, I mean, you just can't say you're going to do the bare minimum because that's you saying you're not going to do much at all. Yeah, that's how I'm taking and how I would take that. Is that you're not going to do.
She hasn't declared that. Just, you know, stories right and left.
That's what she's implying when she said it. That's what she's implying, that I'm, you know, that I'm not, we can't afford to have teachers teaching our students, our children, that has that attitude that they're just going to do a little bit. We need you to be there. We need you to do everything you can to make sure.
Tara, I was told they're considered to be insubordinate if they do not do the work.
Absolutely. I was just getting ready to get there. Thank you, Nicole.
Well, yeah, and it's such a shady line. I mean, it's like I asked her to write the welcoming parent letter. I worked on the schedule, and she just copied and pasted the outline from the slideshow into what, you know, from the teacher's perspective. So it's just different. Maybe.
Well, then that needs to be that needs to be called out.
Thank you very much for copy and pasting the first slide of our PD video. CCN Jar Marshall, CCN Principal. Thank you so much. I look forward to your continued support.
All right.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it has to be called out. I mean, and I know I don't know. I'm just, we cannot just keep letting that slide. We can't.
I think that's a separate committee, like an ongoing conversation, like.
Yeah, we can't. And I know I am going to say this. I know. Yeah. And this is, you know, with JCTA, we're contractually obligated to represent that teacher no matter what. But if they're wrong, they're wrong. We have to call it out. And I wish, excuse me, this is something I'm trying to figure out what we can do, because that's where it's going to go. Well, I'm just going to go to my union. So I'm going to have this conversation with Brent and them. But I know, you know, because we're contractually obligated and could be sued, excuse me, and could be sued if we don't do our job.
It's not that she's not doing her job technically, but she is, I mean, almost blatantly, and it's her new grandbaby that's taking all of her time. So she's going to have a story that the union's going to support, and we need to strategize, I think, Tyra and other JC.
Yeah, I mean, she's doing her job, but she's just doing the bare minimum. I mean, as a teacher, we can't afford for you just to do enough to get by. You know, that's like
the professional
just enough to get by.
But it's part of our evaluation process, professionalism, and then it has on there that you've met all those underneath it. So it's going to get her, if he's CCing the principal, she's not meeting all the requirements. That goes under professionalism.
Yeah, I've already put a sleeve in her principal. I think I need to reach out to her again though, and see if she'll take.
Well, yeah, because I have to do.
Sorry, you were breaking up, Tyra.
I don't know who's speaking. But I will tell you, I understand your concern, but I would certainly do not dismiss your concerns.
No, I haven't. I mean, I've sent something. I expected not to see two teachers in my building to start the year.
I mean,
And
just
it didn't happen.
those covert behaviors, because you just need to keep your eyes open to that, because those are very real feelings. And you want to always be able to remain in your space with an open heart and mind to do the work that needs to be done. So just be mindful of that. So if she's not doing what she's going to do, what she needs to do in order, as far as getting this work done that needs to be done, there's only so much you can do as a teacher without her cronies coming for you. So you always have to remain kind of smart about that. And that's what I'm saying. So thank you so much for copying and pasting the second slide, first slide, and you send it on to the principal and you CC in the people who need to know. And then secondly, think about the work that you can do, because you're not her superior. So you can't go telling her what to do anyway. So you always got to think about that. Otherwise you could be causing, a hostile work environment. So just be careful of the things that she can come at you with. So just be mindful of your space and who you are in that space, and just be smart about how you can go about getting the work done.
Because if he said something or reports it, then the teacher will say he's created a hostile work environment because she's not doing what she's supposed to do.
Okay, well, that's what happens.
Exactly.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Don't worry about that, because that's something that maybe we need to call to the forefront. And we'll discuss the strategy on that one.
Talk about it.
That's what Gay was talking about.
Huh?
That's kind of what Gay was kind of.
No, I said we need a separate committee, I think, to work on this, and that's part of the work that we started to try to do in Dear JCPS Teachable Moments. And so, and we have that relationship with the investigator where we basically just need to keep bringing them examples and holding them accountable when they don't follow through with those examples, and then contacting the media when they show themselves to be who they are. That's the approach that we're trying to take anyway. So
well, that's all. We need to come up with a strategy on how to call this out. That'll be a different committee. Yep, sure would. Yeah.
all right, so it's 6:23, and I know a lot of people only budgeted like an hour and a half to 2 hours for this call. So if it's all right, I'm going to spend the last 7 minutes finishing out these slides, and then if people want to stick around and talk about other stuff, I can stay another half hour or so if other people want to. But I want to make sure that we cover the couple slides that we have left. So after everything that we presented with all of our demands and all of the challenges that exist, what do we do about it, right? So ultimately, what the coalition is demanding is a resolution that the board passes. I'm sorry, Joe left before he got to hear this ultimate conclusion, because I would like to get his feedback on that. But we did run it. Tyra and I met with Dr. Polio in July, I believe it was, and we ran this idea past him. He didn't necessarily jump for joy, but I think that it's a reasonable request, because a precedent has been set back in 2017. A safe haven resolution was passed that supported our students with our immigrant students, and the wording of the resolution is shown on my screen here. I don't have the ability to really move things around just now, but we need the district to do something. We don't have any way to hold them accountable per se. We can't, other than our vote, we can vote our board members out if they don't keep their promises. Our superintendent, no matter how much we think he's doing a great job, he's not going to forever be our superintendent. So what can we put in place that works as a good faith instrument that is part of a public discourse that shows the district's commitment to our Black students? And supporting a resolution, passing a resolution that supports the people's agenda would be that effort, would be that measure. So September 20, there's only 2 more board meetings before voters start getting their ballots and start returning their ballots. And so that's the September board meeting, September 1 board meeting, and the September 29th board meeting. So by September 29th, our goal would be to have the board pass a resolution that supports the Coalition for the People's Agenda. And we need a committee to work on that between now and the next meeting so that we can kind of start working on some of the wording that we would have in this resolution. And it would incorporate the demands list that we've already talked about. And the language around those demands continues to be fine-tuned. So that could be the same committee, or it could be, we could have a demands committee and then a resolution committee, but I think they probably will morph into the same one because it's the same wording and same language. Let me see if I can change my screen. For some reason it's not. Okay. So since our last meeting, I want to share with you some conversations that have taken place. We've received the language for the ballot. If this measure ends up on the ballot, which we heard recently that the board voted to challenge it, and they're spending our taxpayer dollars on trying to prevent this measure from going before voters, which is disappointing because we don't support this tax increase, quote unquote, unconditionally. We want our demands to be met, and we want to be confident that the district is going to keep the promises that it's making, and some. Like just building the schools, as we talked about, isn't gonna solve all the problems. So the language on the ballot, if it does go before the board, I thought I had moved this up high enough to where you guys could see it, but let's see if it'll let me edit it. The language that's going to be on the ballot, which we'll know in a few more days. And I'm hearing rumors, by the way, that the union is calling teachers whose names were on the tax increase petition and telling them that if they ever want to be considered for a promotion, that they need to remove their names from this petition. Has anyone else heard this? So that is concerning, whether it's true or not. I just wanted to bring that concern forward in case other people have heard the same. The language would be, are you for or against the Jefferson County Board of Education better supporting the education of students in Jefferson County Public Schools, including improvements to school facilities by levying a real estate and personal property tax of 7 additional cents, 0.07 per $100 valuation? So that's the way the ballot measure will be worded. And so there will be a campaign, you know, I support JCPS or whatever the language the district campaign consultant comes up with will be around that language. Here's just an email that I received about the student assignment plan not having been run through the REAP. We've already talked about that. Here is the email. By the way, I talked about the September 1 and September 29th board meetings being the only 2 public meetings that the district will be holding. Currently, because of COVID, you cannot speak at a board meeting because they're being held by Zoom, and they don't share the links. So they don't invite public speakers to be part of the meeting. If you have a traditional 3-minute speech that you want presented, you submit it to the board secretary and she files it with the minutes. So the loss of visibility and the loss of access to having our voices heard when such important decisions are coming before the board is also concerning. The Alliance sent an email to the board secretary prior to the August 18th meeting, and we still have not heard. We heard back that they were considering it, but we haven't heard anything having been done. And again, September 1 is only a week away tomorrow. So how do we have our voices heard? What avenues are they leaving us? Not many. And then this email right here is the one that I sent on behalf of myself and several other organizations, because one of our concerns is that Black allied and Black-led organizations in particular have not come out in favor of the tax increase, period, point blank. And so the district moving forward with finalizing a student assignment plan that doesn't go far enough and tying it to a tax increase in order to pay for the new schools that will support the new student assignment plan, we have to pass a tax increase. Yet in order to build new schools in the East End, we didn't have to pass a tax increase. So it's a little bit of a slap in the face. It's a slap in the face to say, we're going to build schools. Oh, but in order to get it, you have to pass this tax increase. Oh, but we didn't tell you that part until November. So it's going to feel like bait and switch when the community that is supposed to benefit from this student assignment plan and the tax increase is told that they won't get what they've been promised if they don't come out and support. And so I tried to send Dr. Polio an email prior to the August 18th board meeting. You see, it was August 6th. Actually, I placed a phone call first, and I didn't hear back about a meeting. So I sent this email trying to firm up a time so that leaders from several Black and Black allied organizations could sit down and explain to Dr. Polio some of the things we're hearing in the community and try to help him avoid this, what I predict will be a massive PR debacle. And he never has responded. They told us that they moved the vote to September 29th, and then that was the extent of it. So at this point, the lack of response that we're getting from the district tells me that they're really not interested in working with grassroots organizations. In fact, I don't have a screenshot of this in particular, but I want to tell you that the proposal from the consulting firm, Osborne and Associates, specifically says that they will work with grassroots organizations to develop a marketing strategy and a communication plan around this tax increase. And Dear JCPS is a grassroots organization focused on education in JCPS, and yet none of my calls that I have made to Osborne and Associates, individual partners with the organization, with the district, none of those inquiries have been returned, and we're being told that the district is forming its own quote unquote grassroots organization. They're starting their own 501c4. They're going to build their own fundraising campaign and appoint their own steering committee, so they will determine whose voices have a seat at the table, which again, I think is another bad PR move just waiting to backfire on them. So these are just things that I want to make you aware of because you're on this committee, and I want you to be fully aware of what we're up against. We've done this before, though. That's the other thing too, is this consulting firm is out of Danville, Kentucky, and I just don't think that, I think they've underestimated the Jefferson County community. When we have issues that require voters to turn out, we turn out. And when we had a privatizer as the chairman of our public school board, what did we do? We voted him out. We also replaced other board members who supported our incompetent superintendent and replaced them with people who committed to removing her. And they removed her 2.5 years prior to her contract expiration. So our community will mobilize. We mobilized against state takeover. We've mobilized against charter schools and vouchers, and we will continue to mobilize on behalf of what's in the best interest of our students and our taxpayer dollars. So it's disappointing that they've underestimated us, but the coalition's opinion that we're presenting to the board and to the public is that our support of the tax increase, I personally, as I mentioned earlier, I want to see this tax increase pass, but not with a, carte blanche, not with an open-ended set of parameters. And I would like, my personal preference would be to see the district do what it takes to earn the votes of our Black constituents. And I'll stand with them. I will vote for this tax increase if the Black community supports it. If they are not, if the district hasn't earned it. And so that's this window that we're working in is a window to make demands and see what the district is willing to do, and then decide if it's enough or not. And the alternative is to do nothing, and they'll probably still get their tax increase, and we'll get a piss ass. Sorry, I tend to cuss at the end of these calls when I finally get a frustration. We'll get a piddly student assignment proposal that doesn't go nearly far enough, and they'll say, hey, we did something, and 10 more years will go by. And again, that's unacceptable. So it's now or never. And if you're on board with the things that we've talked about and you want to be part of these committees, and Let's see if I've got one more slide. I think I have just the last bit here is the upcoming meetings. We've got some committee work that needs to be done, so let me know, let us know where you want to step in, what committees you want to serve on. Is there an AROS meeting tonight, by the way? Nobody is going, unless Greg maybe went.
I think there is one tonight. My calendar says there is.
All right, well,
But
Greg,
you know, they've been skipping meetings and moving them around, and I just don't know.
and Greg's not here, so he probably
And
went.
Greg's not here. He keeps on it a lot better than I do.
Well, he goes on behalf of LSurge. Dear JCPS has removed our attendance, our membership from AROS because I believe they're on the wrong side of history, and I prefer to distance myself from those behaviors. There is a Kentucky Alliance press conference every Sunday at 10 a.m. So the next one is August 30th. We've got the Education Committee meeting every Monday at 4:30. So that's our next Education Committee meeting. If you haven't started Nice White Parents podcast, I highly encourage you to do so. And what I would like to do, even if it's just on my own page, I'm going to start having some book discussion type things around that podcast, because I think it's got lots of layers that we need to peel, and it definitely applies to JCPS being a district of choice like we are. And we need to do a town hall so that we can educate the community about our demands and about student assignment and the things that this coalition is moving forward with, and set the date for that. And September 29th is the deadline for everything to be finalized, which, as you know, means it needs to be in the works now, yesterday, last week, last month. But if we did it even like September 8th-ish, it would be 3 weeks before the board meeting, and that might be enough to kind of start the avalanche of conversations that need to take place. And then, so I'd like to kind of throw that out there and see if anybody has any thoughts on timing for a town hall. All right. We can go back to that. September 1st and September 29th are the two board meetings. We were going to submit, if we could get videos, if we could get permission from the district to allow videos to be submitted, then we were going to solicit 3-minute videos from people that have concerns about student assignment in particular. And then on the 29th board meeting is the resolution. And then as soon as we know if the district is meeting our demands adequately, then we would canvass. We would build our own campaign. We would go out in the neighborhoods and knock on doors and share our position on the tax vote, whether it's for or against. You know, that's a decision that this coalition would make. And it's kind of like an endorsement. Like, organizations have processes in place where they determine if they're going to endorse, which candidates they're going to endorse. So we would establish a protocol that we would follow, that the coalition would determine which direction we would be going, and then we would canvass with that stance. And then on November 3rd, I call it Protest the Establishment. It's election day. People need to be encouraged to show up at the polls and vote, not just for or against the tax increase, but to replace candidates that need to be replaced. So we have a lot going on here in Jefferson County and in Kentucky. All eyes on Kentucky right now. So those are the last slides I had, I believe. Anyone else have anything they want to add or any questions they want to ask about any of that?
Gay, is there a certain amount of money from the budget, from the tax increase that we're demanding in order to endorse it?
That's a great question. I know there have been dollar amounts that have been discussed when it comes to the schools that would be built in the West End. And at a minimum, obviously, we would want those numbers committed to. But, you know, some of that might play into the plus or minus percent student assignment piece of it, where we would need the district to invest dollars in schools that were falling behind in the diversity index. So it's up to us as a committee to determine if we want to do that. So are you?
And one more question, one other question in regards to that. For the monies that we're wanting to demand, or whatever it is we're wanting to demand in order to endorse this tax increase, along with that, are we going to be demanding certain kinds of programs too, like what Joe Marshall was saying, that would attract students to those kinds of students who live in those kinds of that kind of area culturally, whether it be music program, production programs, or whatnot. Because like you were saying, if I do think that if you build it, personally, I'm more of an optimist in this situation. I think if you build it, I think they will come. But at the same token, but you have to at least offer it. And if we don't buy into it down there in those places and spaces, at least have it where we can keep those seats filled for kids who come from other locations. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Or no?
And I think you're hitting on some important points. And it needs to be, I don't know that we necessarily want to put dollar amounts on everything, because it should be more along the lines of whatever it takes to achieve the goal.
Yeah.
But I also think it's important to note that this is a working document. The People's Agenda is a working document. It's a living document that grows. And that's why a seat at the table is such an important thing, because it can't just be one and done. They come out in the community, they listen to what they think is some meaningful feedback at the time, and then they take it back to their ivory tower and come up with a solution that ends up being more of a shell game, because they give a little bit here, but in order to pay for it, they pull from a little bit here when nobody's looking, and you end up with the same. So
right.
we need a demands list that looks more like declarations earlier, and some people don't like using that word, but it needs to repair the damage that's been done, not just say, okay, from this day forward, everybody's going to be on the same footing.
Right.
And, that's where the REAP comes in. Like, I think it's premature to set too many demands, because we might sell ourselves short and could have demanded more. So the seat at the table is a really important piece of this, because it is an ongoing working document, and more layers continue to get exposed every day. Like even the things Greg was talking about, we know about these things happening in other schools, but there's not a coordinated effort. And that's why we started Dear JCPS Teachable Moments, is because when we talked to Dr. Polio, Latasha and I talked to Dr. Polio about this on 2 separate occasions, and his answer was, well, we have a grievance process, or, it's always when it's too late. We don't necessarily want teachers to wind up in grievances. We don't want teachers to wind up fired or in lawsuits. We want opportunities to coach and redirect and bring about aha moments for our white educators, so that they recognize that they didn't have to mean anything by it to be causing harm. But instead, we create these defensive situations where they double down, and then they're not coachable at all, ever. And then that's when they end up getting in a grievance situation. So we need some creative solutions that may not necessarily even exist yet, that we haven't thought of. But that's why people need to be at the table. Impact is
Well, I'll tell you this. Looking at our situation, and I'll just be very transparent to say, I'm not saying that we are a perfect institution by any means, because we are absolutely not. But as far as seeing a difference, a positive change at the table and like in the culture, I do certainly see a difference. And I think the reason why is because at the top, whether it be, and I do think it was like district level, coming in and demanding that Manuel makes change. And it started with that principal. And it's clearly being spewed from his mouth onto the faculty that like Black Lives Matter, that we're not going to tolerate racism, that we're going to be an all-inclusive environment. And I'm seeing a change in just how some teachers' reactions would otherwise be. I think they're understanding that my racist rhetoric no more. Does that make sense?
It does.
So,
and I think that you're right. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that it's working because just the kind of questions we had to do, every person in I do believe JCPS has to do 4 hours of implicit bias training. And then they, at the end of some of these training sessions, then 4 hours on your own, and then you have the other trainings that you do that's embedded into your PD. This before the school year had actually started for the teachers. And some of the questions were things like, you know, and so this is not just our school, but stories I'm hearing from other teachers as well, you know, like, well, are we going to get in trouble if something slips, or are we going to get into trouble if, you know, so these teachers they're understanding that, like, I got to get my crap together. Like, I can't make these slips and use the N-word, you know, because it's in, you know, Huck Finn this many times. Me using it 5 is okay, right? So they're learning, I think, that I have to, like, pause and think about what I'm saying and who my audience is before saying it. So I wouldn't have noticed that before, but this year I am noticing it through some of the kind of comments and questions that I'm seeing and hearing in the Padlets.
Well, and that's good, and it does start at the top, but it also has to not be a broken chain down the chain of command. And I think a lot of that may depend on the assistant superintendent, it may depend on the principal. Like, there's lots of opportunities for that culture and climate to shift. And so I'm glad that you think Manual is improving. But I know
we're nowhere near perfect. We're nowhere near perfect. Right. Like none.
And I know for a fact,
we're
firsthand experience our schools that are not improving. So
right,
we have to keep putting the pressure on until every school is walking and talking anti-racist examples and not just lip service. And the Black community, from what I'm hearing from people that I talk to, is that the district has, no matter how good a job they're doing explaining it and talking it up now, they have to earn the trust of the community again. It can't just be, oh, well, this time it's different and you need to trust us. They need to say, they need to show us. And
but doesn't that go back to the PTA? And maybe if you were to have PTA meetings that were not at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, and you made it where those like that population of parents can attend the meetings, maybe in those spaces and places they can kind of know what's going on in the building to hold for the accountability piece.
Yeah, at my building, the PTA meeting is at 7 o'clock. Because guess what? People have freaking jobs. Who could have guessed that?
They're at 7 in the morning?
No, 7 in the evening. So that people can go. When I heard there were places that had PTA meetings at 10, what the hell is that?
Girl, it's at like 8, 9, 10. But and then when you looked at our board, our PTA board, then literally like every single one except for like one lady who was like a 3 to 11 nurse, everybody was a stay-at-home mom. Every single one. So basically, we've got people living in Landis Lakes, Lake Forest, people whose husbands are doctors, surgeon, dentists, whatever. You're making decisions for my Black, brown child, or kids who live in the West End who are, you know, whatever. I mean, how is that? Your PTA board, your PTA should be a resemblance of what your student population is, at least somewhat. And
Parent population.
Right.
You have stay-at-home moms deciding what's best for moms who just don't get off of work till 6 o'clock.
Exactly. But I mean, they don't even offer you. Here in my other struggle was when I wrote about this last year, I wrote about it the year before. My question is, well, why would you not wear the minutes? So at least I can know, where is there an agenda you can post before the meeting. So if I've got questions, then or a specific question, you know, and if you give me the follow-up meetings from the previous meeting, then I can at least have a question about that. I mean, but they don't even offer parents, they don't even put that on their page. So, and they don't offer it in the newsletter. So I just think that, I think that's a huge part of it for a lot of different spaces and places, you know?
So I also think that that is something that the student assignment plan, an equitable student assignment plan, would help mitigate the extremes like that. So I don't think that it's just up to PTA to do a better job being inclusive. I think that a more inclusive student assignment plan would naturally, organically create a more inclusive
Oh, absolutely.
situation.
I do agree with you there. I was just trying to think of ways in the spaces that we're in where we can try and make a difference while we're waiting for everything else to kind of come down the pipe. Because wherever these parents are, unless it's a predominantly or a large populated Black and brown school, there's just not a lot of Black people on these PTA boards. So when you're talking about schools that are failing or have large achievement gaps, they're generally with parents who don't know, they're not even involved in their kids' school. They're not involved in any way other than a football game or whatnot. And because that's at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. So I just think that if we can just try and get parents to be used to being at the table, like being used to being at the table, like what you were saying earlier, you know, hey, your voice matters, and, you know, to get them involved, help them feel comfortable at that table.
Well, okay. Back to what we were saying about educators, the same thing happens with our parents. And
Hey, Gay.
yes.
Hey, I'm sorry. I just wanted to see if I could say something. I know with Carla, me and her have been working really hard within the PTA, within the South End and the First District, to see if we could work really hard together to get our PTA and PTSA meetings in a nighttime setting, and to also get them virtual so we can get our meetings to our parents and meet them where they are. And we're trying to get that to work not only within our areas, but also within the other areas, because we have found it hard to get our meetings in the daytime and in the mornings. Parents were not coming to those meetings. Our parents were not getting the attention that they were needed. And
Right.
it was not, and just like Nicole said, parents were not coming. Our parents were not coming out. We need our parents there, all parents there.
Yes.
Parents of color, it doesn't matter. We need all parents there. And this is a big issue. And this is something that me and Carla have pondered about for the longest time, on how to meet our parents where they are. And the number one thing is going to be, one, virtually. Parents don't always have transportation. So, hey, let's go live and let's bring our PTA meetings to you.
Awesome
So
idea.
let's do that, number one. Two, let's hold these meetings in the evening. Let's email our minutes to our parents. Let's get them to you so you can see what we are talking about. Let's be transparent. Let's not keep anything from our parents. Let's show you what's happening in our meetings. Let's let you see our budgets. Let's let you see what's happening within our schools. Let's invite you to our schools. Let's hold our activities, our events in your area, because you can't always come to us. So let's bring the PTA to you. So I just wanted you guys to know that that's a few things that me and Carla are working on, at least I know within in the VP1 and VP3. That is what we are wanting to work on and bring not only to just the South End and the West End. We want to bring that within with all the VPs. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. That is something that me and Carla are truly passionate about, and that's something that we are truly working on.
Can I give you a shout out? That is such wonderful news. Thank you.
That was a commercial.
so
That would make you like
much.
vote for him, like you for president. Yes.
Well, I know PTA or PTSAs have been a negative thing for so long, and it does have its own, I guess, reputation. When me and Carla got on the board, and I've met Carla along the way, and I joined when she joined. We want to see a change, and I want to see a change within the PTA, and so does she. I vowed to make a change. I vowed to see diversity and inclusion within the PTA when I initially joined. That was my goal. That is still my goal. And that will be my goal for the next 20 to 50 years if I can make it that long. I don't want to go anywhere. I want to join every group I can join. I want to join every community outreach program I can join because I want it known that this is a problem within JCPS, within any community out there. We need our parents in the community, and we need more of our parents' support. So whatever I can do, whatever Carla can do, that's what we're here for. So I just wanted you guys to know, I know that a lot of you guys don't know me, but I am here to support everybody. And I just kind of wanted to put my little plug in there that if you guys ever need me for anything, I am here for our parents. I am here for a reason. And I just kind of want to put that out there.
Well, I appreciate you taking time. I'm a mother before anything. And as a mom, that just makes me feel good that I'm hearing that there are people out there that are advocating for that. Because in certain spaces and places, you know, because we are quite segregated as a district, we don't hear that. We're hearing, no, we can't do this because of that. No. You know, this year we might be able to get a PTA in the evening, maybe, and that's only because of default because of Corona. But that being said, it's not in stone from my understanding. But I just really think that it's outstanding to hear that there are people out there who are making intentional efforts in changing that and making it more inclusive for all parents everywhere in all areas of the district.
And I will say, thank you for saying that, Bobby Joe. I appreciate that. And I know that there might be some struggles that have existed in the past. I'm a PTA mom. I've been a PTA mom since my children were in kindergarten, and you know they're 23 and 25 now. So I've always considered myself a PTA mom, and I believe in PTA. I always have. What I witnessed here in Jefferson County was similar to what some of our educators have been talking about that they've experienced in their schools with other educators, and that is when a Black parent raises a concern about something that might be racist, whether it's a practice that's taking place in the building, whether it's an election for getting people on SBDM, whether it's testing or language, the way that teachers may be referring to their students, the names they're calling them sometimes have a culturally inappropriate flavor to them, for lack of a better word. And so when these parents have raised a concern, simply wanting to keep their children safe and wanting to make sure that their Black children have the same opportunities for quality education that every student deserves, they were seen as a threat. And in several schools, this isn't unique to just one school. I've heard of several similar situations where a Black parent raised a concern, and before you knew it, they were being voted off of their PTA and replaced by a white teacher. And principals and administrators in these schools played a role in this. And when it was brought to PTA leadership attention, we were treated as hostile. We were treated as a threat. And so if there were some ways for you to know that these things have happened and figure out what that root cause is and a way to address them in these schools, there are low performing schools in particular that don't have the same parent advocacy and that are high minority populations but are led by white administrators and mostly white teachers, where the demographics of the adults in the building don't look like the demographics of the students in the building. When there's pressure on these schools to perform test scores and behavior is treated differently based on the color of a student's skin and just compounding effects. You know, these are all what they call microaggressions. They add up. And so we were witnessing that and we were experiencing that. So that's a real life concern that probably continues today that needs to be addressed at a systemic level. And I don't know that I have the answer for you, but I just want to make sure that it's not glossed over, that it's not simply assumed that if we all come to a meeting at the right time and we can all be at a meeting, that everything will be okay. There's a lot more to it. And I know I'm not telling you something you don't know. But since it's just us girls, I thought that it would be okay if I kind of went into that story a little bit. And if you want to know more about the experiences that happened as you were coming on and Latasha and I were kind of trying to push back, it wasn't the most pleasant experience, but we kind of were left with no other options to show, to object to what was taking place in these schools. So I look forward to working with you is what I'm really, that was a long way of me saying that.
I just wanted you guys to know that I am 100%. I hear your concerns. Carla and me have definitely been on the same page, and we agree that there needs to be a change. There needs to be a change in our community, and we look forward to the change. If there are schools that people have concerns about, that maybe you see that need extra attention, maybe reach out in some way. I know a lot of you know Carla, a lot of people, if you don't know me, please, I'm on Carla's friends list. I know Gay, I think you've known me a few times. I think you know how to reach me. Please reach out to us. Since we're VPs, we can reach out to those schools and let us see what we can do to help. Let us try. Let us see what we can do. We want to make that change. And I don't want to say that we could make it overnight, but we're going to try our hardest to prove that we are going in the right direction. It may not be a week, it may not be a couple days, but I know Carla has stated she will change this, and she's in this for the long haul, and she's going to prove to everybody she's going to make a change. And when she makes a change, she's going to make a big change. She's got plans, and I'm going to follow behind her in her plans. And I just want you guys to know that when she does, it's going to be great. It's going to be a good change. And whatever you guys need, I'm here.
Sounds good. I appreciate that.
We appreciate you.
So I think on that note, it's 7 o'clock. Probably a good time to end this call and say, you know, if you're interested in serving on any of these committees, we're going to be doing some behind the scenes work between now and next Monday. We've got some demands documents, and we also want to do an open letter that we publish in the Courier Journal. So we're going to need signatures on board. Do you know, Bobby Joe, while I have you on the call, do you know if the list of demands that you've seen tonight is something the PTA would get behind?
That would be a question for Kentucky PTA. Or I would honestly say, and I don't know what kind of relationship that you have with Eddie or Sienna, that would be a question for them. Individually, I don't, we can't individually, you know how the PTA rules are, we can't individually go against things. But I don't know what kind of relationships you have with them. If you come at it maybe as the Kentucky Alliance group that you're proposing, come at it as a group, maybe, and see what they say.
Yeah, Eddie doesn't
Again,
return my calls.
give it a try. It won't hurt to try, you know?
Yeah, Eddie doesn't return my calls either.
Gay, who is calling you?
You are. I want to say maybe me and you should talk on a different level. Maybe one that's not recorded.
All right. I'm up for that.
That makes sense.
It does. What's your schedule? When are you available?
Mine, I'm pretty open. I'm other than just PTA meetings and trainings.
So do you want to try and get together tomorrow?
Sure.
Do Do you know what your schedule looks like?
Let me tell you right now. Let's see here. Anytime after 1 o'clock.
Let's say 2.
That sounds like a plan. You want to do a phone conversation or you want to meet up?
I am trying to practice social distancing the best I can, so phone or Zoom would be fine. It doesn't
Phone
have,
would be great. We can do a phone.
that sounds good. You have my number?
I will send you, you want me to send you a friend request on Facebook?
Perfect.
Okay. And then I will, once you accept it, I will send it to you in Messenger.
Okay.
And even if you want, I will let Carla know that we're having the conversation, and I'm sure she may even want to join too. Maybe I can put her in the call too, because I know she has a lot of input to put in as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would appreciate that actually. All right.
And if there's any information that you can give me as a parent role and how I could help, what I could do in my space as a mom, please feel free to let me know.
Okay. If
Like,
anybody wants to find me, my first name is Bobby Joe, and it's Hayes Kingery. So Hays, and then
Okay,
Kingery.
I'm hooked on phonics. Gotta give me a minute. I'm old.
That's okay.
So
It's first
Bobby
name is Bobbijo, and then it's 2 last names. So Hays, and then Kingery.
And are you just do you put that on your personal, on your JCPS, or you're not a teacher, are you?
No, I'm with 15 District PTA and Kentucky PTA.
In Kentucky. So how do what's your email, I guess?
B as in boy, and then Kingery, the last name, the Kingery,
Okay.
07 @gmail.com.
Okay, so in case that because we do have a group of parents who last year was our first time like getting totally fed up, and we wrote, nasty letters to the principal, and then the principal was told by the PTA, sorry, not sorry, but no. So this year we did already bring it to him again, and he said he thinks that they're gonna, because of COVID, maybe move it to the evening. So we're gonna follow up probably within the next week to see if that's happening. So we are prepared to make it known, if you will, that they're not, that we asked, and that they're not obliging. So we just want, if anything, we ask for them to rotate the schedule, meaning 1 month have it at your 8 or 9 o'clock, and then the next month have it at 6:30 or 7. So
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a wonderful idea.
They shot it down last year. They shot it down over the summer, but because of COVID, then they said that they might do later this, I guess this semester. But we're just trying to make sure that it's something that is concrete and that it stays.
I'm just confused. What's the argument for having it in the day where 70% of moms and 95% of dads can't show up?
Well, but the board can.
I don't understand.
They like it being cliquish sometimes.
I mean, I'm just telling you, that's what the principal
Ours
told me.
is at 7 o'clock Thursday, whatever the Thursday of the month is. I forget which Thursday it is.
And see, that does happen because I'm also on the Frost and Stewart PTSA at our school where my daughter went to school at, although now she's moved on to Fairdale and we're electing a new board, so we'll get to do that fun stuff, and then I will get to move on. But sorry, my dog's gonna bark. There was a time where that board, when I first started, the board wanted to do morning board meetings. When I initially came in, they were like, we're doing 9:45 in the morning. Now, although I do not work, I'm disabled. So I'm like, still, I approached them and said, this will not work. How can our parents come to this board meeting? You are only helping yourself. You're not helping our parents.
Good
you are
for you.
setting your board meeting for you. You're not setting your board meeting for our parents. So when I got on the board, I changed that, and I changed our meetings to evening meetings. They
You
did
were
not
able to
like
do
it,
that? So you
but
were
I
the
did not
you were
care.
the president? And so the president is able to change that time.
I requested it from my board, and I pushed and pushed and pushed until my board agreed with me that they needed to meet my parents where they were at.
Oh,
And so
wow.
the board, you know, we have to vote as a board, but I pushed and pushed and pushed until my board realized we were not doing our service to our PTA members by having a daytime board meeting. We were only servicing ourselves.
That's awesome.
So we moved it and it worked out great. The only problem was, again, most of our parents, everybody knows the clusters of school, most of our parents came from the West End, which then we still had a hard time getting them down to Dixie Highway. So now I want to move to virtual because this will help them be able to still attend our meetings. So I want to do virtual meetings through Zoom to help them now as well. So that's my next step. So
That's
if
an
anything I can do to
idea.
help you, I will.
I need to tell you, you are a goddess, Bobby Joe. Let me just tell you.
Well, I just want to do what's right. And what's right is getting our members and getting our parents where they need to be.
Let's do this.
And I mean, not everybody sees it the same way. There are very good people in PTA, and there are people who are still not there yet and are still working their way there. And we need to all be on the same page. There we go. That's the best I can say it.
We'll wait until you and Gay chat and you can see the better way to say it.
But just know, I am on the side of the parents. I'm on the side of diversity. A lot of people, when they first met me, and again, I apologize, my husband came home, so the dog's gonna bark. When a lot of people first heard my name on the ballot, they assumed that I was going to be another one of those moms who wasn't going to be for our parents and for our kids. I am not that. I will be boots on the ground. I've been downtown, I've marched, I've done it all. I am for our kids. I will do whatever it takes for our kids, and I will do whatever it takes for our parents. So just wanted you all to know that that's what I was, and I know I just wanted to get the stigma out that I am the good one, and you all got me.
We love you.
PTA's got me. PTA's got me, and if there's anything that I can change, if people want it changed, I'm going to be the one to get it, and so is Carla.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I felt that I was the good one at one point too, and they voted me off. So I hope they don't. I know they won't be listening to you.
You'll get back, Gay. You'll get back. Just get a little time.
I always say, behave, you'll get back in.
Behave. I'm not good at that.
I know. But I will say this, Gay, you have a lot of great ideas. You really do. You really, really do. You really do.
I don't think anybody can say anything negative as far as your ideas and the push forward. And, you know, I always say that thieves, they don't break into like empty homes. They only break into spaces and places where there's something worth stealing. So, you know what I mean? You're that fancy house on the street.
Oh, you're too kind. Do I have a pool? I need a pool.
You do. You have a pool and an elevator.
Nicole, it's nice for you to say that, and my experiences have been that I hear that a lot, actually, Bobby Joe, and I appreciate you saying that too. People usually tell me they like my ideas, they just don't like my delivery. They don't like how I asked, and that's funny because the times that I try asking nice go ignored. The times that I finally get somebody's attention is because I had to get a little bit uncomfortable with somebody. And, you know, if you think about, I'm not comparing myself to a person of color by any means, because I know that the experiences of people of color are much more ingrained in our society. I can go home and step away from it and not be anti-racist and no longer experience pushback. But when I am acting as my anti-racist self, that's the usual line I get, is that they like my ideas, they just don't like how I asked. And you know, that's not too dissimilar to what objections you hear about the protesters and about kneeling during the anthem. And you know, we just don't like how you're doing it. So I'm sorry that some of the experiences that you've seen and you're aware of have been more abrasive, because I promise you I tried asking nice. I have an audio recording of the day where I was voted off of the 15th District PTA board that I would like to play for you at some point, because I'd like for you to hear the bullshit that they came up with as the reason that I was being voted off. And it basically boiled down to that I was advocating for Black students at Shawnee. So,
Well, Hargens wanted you gone.
Because I advocated for Shawnee.
That was the beginning and the end of it.
Because I was advocating for Shawnee. Like I was, and we asked nice. Like it started out nice, then they committed fraud. They actually manufactured evidence against me that was fake. And I have a recording of me confronting the Maupin principal when she did it. And she doesn't deny it. Like just the whole series of events that took place were, they need to make a movie about this someday. Hopefully they will.
Just keep doing good. Just keep doing good. And, you know, you win some, you lose some, and it's hurtful. It is. But long as you're doing what's right, I think that's what you have to just, and that doesn't mean you're not going to be broken down and tired. It doesn't mean that. But it just simply means, like what you were saying, you know, earlier, and some other people in another space were saying, you know, just, you know, as long as within your heart and your spirit, that you know you're on the right side of history, then that's what matters the most, and you're making your family proud. You cannot appease everyone, right? You just simply can't. But when you're doing what's right, does that mean you're going to set out and make everyone happy? Does that mean you're going to have to piss off some people and not make them uncomfortable? You know, I don't know how much progress is really made in a very comfortable space. So, you know, you just have to remember that.
I love you, Nicole. Thank you.
Well, it's just true. It's just true. And been there, done that, and that bitterness and all that, you know, it's just not worth it, because you're doing what's right. And even if you're like, some days I could have been nicer, and you weren't, you know, you just reflect, and then you wake up the next day and you try and be nicer that day. You know, and because you know what, because we're all full of flaws, we all make mistakes. You're not like some entity, some higher being where you're free of flaw. So for someone to put you onto those kinds of platforms,
right,
that's really hypocritical.
And not allow any room for repair. And you know, sometimes when I do things and I say things, I realize as they're coming out of my mouth that, oh, you know, I probably shouldn't have said it that way, or I didn't think about the fact that so-and-so was also on that call, and you know, he probably needs some more background information before he'll understand. Like, I realize these things, and all you can do is adapt and grow. And this is a very unforgiving community. Like, you're not allowed to make mistakes around here. So the people who take greater risks have made more mistakes and are excommunicated, for lack of a better term, as a result. So
we call ourselves leaders for children. Yeah. Role models. We want our kids to. How are we going to teach our kids to forgive? How are we going to create space and cultures for our kids to make mistakes if we're setting a platform where adults and advocates for kids can't make mistakes? What type of culture are we creating? So we have to know how to how to embrace mistakes and to grow and build relationships amongst ourselves before we can go into a classroom and teach a child how to do it. Because if some of these people are behaving this way outside the classroom, imagine what they're doing inside the classroom with that child.
Right. All right. Well, I know you guys probably. Go ahead.
I'm just going to pile on just the tiniest bit. But one of the things is, you know, Nicole, it's just like with the cops. You know, I say, people, this is what they do. When there's 300 people watching, and the camera crews are filming.
Right.
So you can guess what they do in a dark alley if it's just you.
You're right.
I mean, you see what they'll do with really 10,000 witnesses, because it's going to go on Facebook and 10,000 people will see it.
Exactly.
Right, which is why we know there's so much more to the
I mean, all you can say is, okay.
Right. But we need more people, though, Yvonne, to rally behind people. It doesn't mean that we support poor behavior, but we do believe in empathy and advocating for growth and repair. And I think that if we learn to do that, instead of either sitting silent and or not openly saying, acknowledging, well, I don't agree with this, but much like many people out here, there is room for growth. And how about we strategize and figure out how to repair relationships rather than try and bully someone into silence, or, you know what I mean? No more of a to silence their voice or to remove them from the advocacy place. I think we just have to look at that. And that's why I tell some of my friends, no one's saying some of these principals out here who are new to the platform, this whole political platform, that they're not going to make mistakes in trying to push this racial inequity, all this REAP, all this R tools. And no one's saying that they're going to do it perfectly, but there should be room. We cannot just throw them to the dogs because they didn't stand up and say, you know what, I believe Black Lives Matter, and I'm gonna wear my Black Lives Matter. No, we have to stop and give people the platform to be an advocate and to make mistakes and to grow within their platform. Yeah, the end game could be, I wish you would wear that. That's a bold move. But we just have to face it. Everybody doesn't do things and advocate in the same way. If Gay's a hard ass and she's like, this is me, yeah, if she wants to dial it back in some areas, fine, but stop getting caught up in the damn messenger and listen to the message. If we get caught up in the messaging, then maybe we can move forward.
Why are you punishing Black students because you don't like me? That's ultimately.
That's what they do.
Right.
And the same thing goes, if you're friends with someone, it's like, oh, well, this person's cool. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're friends? And then people want to be silenced into, I can't believe you're that person's friend. And then they don't want to tell anybody. I'm like, if I got friends out in the community and they're out there being hellraisers, yeah, I know them. I said they're a hellraiser, right? I mean, it is what it is. But at the same token, when my child was sick, that person was there and you were nowhere to be found. So how about you look at that about character traits?
Right. Right.
So you keep doing what the hell you're doing. Good days, bad days, ugly days. Just try your best and just reflect like you've been doing and just keep trying. Just, live to fight another day and just try your best, reflect and just, strategize and do what you can to keep yourself motivated to want to get out there another day, because there's only a handful of people who are out there putting it all on the line like that. And we have to acknowledge that. And how dare we be so critical to others who we're not trying to be, and we're not in those spaces to be those things. So,
I mean, and like even with the student assignment plan and this demands list, I'm pushing a lot of this. I'm aware of that. I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible and hold space, because I'm also aware that teachers are spread incredibly thin. The Black community is spread incredibly thin. The people who need to be at this table can't be at the table right now. So it's really just an effort to hold that space until those voices can have an opportunity to organize. And, serving on the board of the Kentucky Alliance, I feel like that's a good role for an Alliance board member to serve in as well, because what else am I doing if I'm not doing anti-racist work and I'm taking up a seat on the board? So, these are things that cause people to feel funny about me because I am white. And so, oftentimes it's easier to label me or criticize me. And I'm like, fine, if somebody's got a better idea, bring it forward. Like, I don't claim to have the only ideas, but nobody else is really pushing it the way that I'm pushing it. I'd be delighted to merge it with others doing similar work. It doesn't have to be me pushing it, but otherwise, until I see somebody pushing harder than me, my options are to just stop and watch it all die. And I feel like this is work that is based on promises that I've been making to moms for the last 8 years. You know, the Shawnee moms that I met, and the concerns they brought to me, the Shawnee teachers and the concerns they brought to me. Like this is a culmination of promises and commitments from vulnerable people who have shared their concerns with me all these years. And I don't claim to be special or the only one who's had these experiences, but I'm trying to turn it into a body of work that leaves, that dismantles. Ultimately, I want to see the district dismantle structural racism, and the student assignment piece is their shining trophy of systemic racism, and it needs to go away. It needs to be redone, back to the drawing board, you know?
Something I tell my students all the time is there's no such thing as a final draft.
Right. But we do have deadlines. And right now we're faced with some deadlines that there's nothing we can do about them. You know, the board meeting on the 29th when they finalize student assignment and their budget, and whether or not there's a resolution on that agenda as well. And if not, why would the Black community come out in support of this tax increase? And it's really tone deaf to just assume you're going to have the Black support for this vote when the people I'm talking to don't support it. And if it's supposed to help Black families and West End families and you don't have their vote, that's just not a good look.
I know several Black families who are for it, but they're Black families who, I guess they're more faith-based, because I mean, I'll tell you, like even me, I'm kind of nervous about voting it down because I'm like, if I vote for it, it's like I'm having faith that they're going to do the right thing, right? But also the understanding that they may not do the right thing. But if then you vote it down,
like,
I don't know. Me personally, I am torn when I go down there and I only see so many elementary schools or so many middle schools. And I was born and raised off of Southwestern Parkway. I went to Martin Luther King, but then they shipped me way out to Stewart Middle School. And I ended up going to Manual as a YPAS student, playing Black girl playing the violin. So, but I certainly see the difference in what my children have had offered to them, being that I didn't raise them in the West End, versus my friends who decided to stay in the West End. You know what I mean? And the kind of education that they got being bussed here, there, or whatever, right? So I'm kind of torn on that. So I wish that I do like those demands, but I wish that we knew, like, okay, there's going to be this school here and it's going to offer these kind of programs. Because it's like what you're saying, that school assignment plan and things like that. It's just systemic racism, but like what you said too, you know, we don't have any control over these board meetings, who's going to speak at these board meetings, or what are you to do?
Well, and the board members, there's a Tea Party candidate on the ballot right now. So how soon have we forgotten already that we had a privatizer board chair and a privatizer trained superintendent who put the business community ahead of parents and students, and that
she had that reputation in North Carolina.
That's right, and that we had a governor and a commissioner who were out to destroy us. Like, we just barely escaped getting out of those scenarios. And we're not in the clear yet. So for us to just say, here's a bunch more money, spend it however you want, get whoever you want elected, have a nice day, is just not a very responsible community response to be stewards of tax dollars. Simply as a taxpayer, I expect better accountability from our school board than what the union currently seems to be in league with the district and the consulting firm, because they've been meeting. And Chris Harmer, who's the chair of AROS, got himself a meeting with these people who are making these decisions, even though he knew we had concerns and we wanted to be invited to that meeting. He went ahead and took that meeting and didn't reflect the concerns of the AROS members and came back and told us we're not going to do what we all just voted to do because the district wants us to wait. The district consultant wants us to wait. So our coalition was sidelined by a meeting that took place between the district consulting firm, somebody from JCTA, and Chris Harmer. And I find that incredibly insulting at a minimum, but outrageous. I mean, if the public knew how much the grassroots organizations are being shut out right now, especially the ones reflecting the voices of our Black stakeholders and our Black voters, I anticipate all kinds of backlash. You know, there's so much still that can happen. You know, the Breonna Taylor case, I'm hearing that they're going to announce tomorrow that they're not going to fire these cops. Have you heard that?
Are they making an announcement tomorrow?
That's what I heard.
Have they said they're going to make an announcement, or is it even the announcement a rumor?
I think even the announcement is a rumor. I'm hearing that Breonna Taylor's mom settled. She took a settlement, and she's no longer pushing for charges against these officers. So there's no reason for the state or the city to fire them because there's no, the plaintiff is not part of the equation anymore. So
well, and you know, I don't know Jack. I'm not a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV. But it looks to me, if they were going to charge somebody,
they would have done it already.
Yeah, we're in a very sad space and place. I just hope that they give us notice when that announcement comes down the pipes so I can be at home. And no, I don't want to be in Kroger.
I think we're going to stay home between now and Derby. I think it's going to get exponentially worse in the near term. And, you know, I hope I'm wrong. But these variables are part of the uncertainty that continue to prevent progress. But it also creates a window of opportunity. And as long as we're ready with our list of demands and our messaging, you know, we might be able to slip in and surprise some people. So, you know, that's why I just keep doing the work, even though it feels like sometimes I'm climbing a mountain. I am still inspired that, you know, we had 15 or 20 people on tonight's call. There are different people coming to the calls each time. I'm hearing feedback that people agree for the most part with what's coming together. And that's all we can do. That's all we can do, because the alternative, as I mentioned, is to do nothing. And
We can't do nothing.
I can't sleep at night if I do nothing. So.
And just implore people to and just encourage people to be the positive difference where they are. We can't change everything. We cannot. But we can find something to change within the space that we're in. You know what I mean? And I think if we start doing that and just trying to find these little wins, of those things that we can do where we're not like going freaking crazy, you know, because doing the work is hard. It's emotionally taxing. And so if we can find things where we can be a positive difference where we are, and hopefully it'll work in that space, and then we can kind of maybe, you know, share that with someone else who's having similar struggles, and they can find that strategy and use it in their space, and it can kind of change the culture with time. Because some of us, I mean, it is very difficult. Right. I'm still recovering from all the stuff that we've been through, and I think that one thing I learned is until you get far enough away from trauma, you really can't talk about it and really understand the impact that it's had on you until you're like a year, 2 years out. Kind of like Elie Wiesel when he wrote about his experience with the Holocaust camp. It's like, you know, until you're so far removed, you don't even understand. The pain is so deep, the trauma is so real, you can't get outside it or beside it. So I think that for me, I just think that, you know, it's safest just to be that change where I am and then grow it as it will naturally grow. Right. And just try and maintain that positive attitude, because your greatest wealth is your health, and it ain't work. That's stress and stuff. We have to be smarter. instead of, about moving forward. And we have to just look at our environments for what they are and not for what we want them to be at that time. If that means like you cannot help your environment, your space, if you don't recognize its problems, its issues, its challenges. And once you look at those challenges, then just find yourself, like what you're saying, don't climb the mountain. Maybe you just need to throw a pebble right now. Just throw a pebble first. See how that works. Did you get your pebble across? Did it skip? And then kind of move on and move on and move on. And put yourself in spaces that keep you encouraged. So I'm really glad that I did sign on today. That I did I'm kind of making dinner and doing things while I'm talking to you. But it did, I do think it's a space that people need to come and they do need to visit. Especially people who have experienced, whether it be trauma, whether it be isolation, whether it be, I wish I would have whatever, with my kid, when my kid was in this school or that school. So it certainly is a place and space that I think that most parents, any parent, really should be able, they should attend, at least visit it at least once.
All righty.
My 2 cents. Well, I guess that was more like $1.50, but I'm just saying.
I can always count on you. I'm glad you came too, Nicole, and I think you were a big contribution to the conversation, and hope to have you on some of the committees as we get some of these documents drafted.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my life right so I can. I'm doing things at Manual. I'm trying to be a positive difference where I am. I'm trying to be a proactive difference where I am. And I've been accountable. I've held myself accountable. And one of the biggest things I shared in one of my bias trainings was I said, people know my story somewhat, but I said, but in my reflection, one thing that I regret, and I don't regret very many things being a parent, but one of the biggest regrets I now have is not having the conversation with my children about race at a very young age. I should have. Just because my friend group looked different didn't make them not Black and them not white or them not Indian or them not Cuban. And I should have done that. And I think that when that situation happened with my children, had I had that conversation and been more involved in these spaces and places, maybe she wouldn't have had that would not have had such an impact on her emotionally, because that trauma came from any trauma first time. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And that's what it was. I mean, she's never experienced anything like that.
Well, and especially when your trauma is induced by racism.
Yeah, she had no idea. I never talked to her about it. People don't understand. I've never had a white person to use the N-word in my presence until I was like 41 or 42 years old. Never in my life had I had a white person to look at me and use the N-word and say the N-word to my face, ever. And I went to music school, U of L, 2 years, YPass, first chair, 4 years, middle school violin. I had never had a white person ever to use that word directed at me, ever. And that was, I guess in a way it's awesome, but the same way I wish they would have, I wish I was like 12 and they told me. I wish I would have dealt with that when I had a parent there to talk to me about that, because then I would have had a better idea how to deal with my child, because the same thing happened to me, but we were going through it together.
Right. Well, and I also think it can be empowering to fight back. The trauma also, I think, can come from losing, feeling like you're losing the battle. And so the opposite of that is winning the battle. And so dismantling structural racism would be incredibly empowering for a lot of people, I would think. I know it would be for me, and I'm just a facilitator, really,
But you speak truth. You speak truth.
I want to see structural racism dismantled. That would be my dream.
And I think that with time, and for us, like I said, I'm really just looking for a proactive approach to trying to, like what you're saying, dismantle systemic racism, just being the change where we are, whether it be here or there, whatever space we find ourselves in,
Right.
just try and be that proactive piece, that voice. You know, if there's a voice that's there that's not being inclusive, to be the person in the room to say, well, what about this population? What about that population? Just those little things that we can do to be a difference, a positive difference where we are. You know, I don't look at it. I used to look at it like, oh, this is, you know, people are, you know, doing this and that, and it's a winning battle or a losing battle. And I don't look at it like that anymore. I look at it like it's a sick war that's ongoing. There ain't no winners or losers. It's just a continuous fight. And it's just round after round after round.
Maybe there are strategic pieces that we could play that would chip away at it faster, especially in this moment, I think.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna, you know, people talk about that issue over there with that person, and I tell them all the time, not worth my breath on this earth, you know, because at the end of the day, people who do intentional harm by a kid, we do enough unintentional harm to our damn kids. You know, a bad day, you're saying, damn it, why didn't you clean your room up? That alone that's unintentional harm, right? But when you do things intentionally to harm kids, that's somebody I don't even want to play with. I don't want to play with you.
Right.
I don't want to share space with you. I don't want to think about you.
Right.
I don't want to have a conversation with you. That's not a win or lose, because that you are a loser if you do anything to intentionally harm a child or
Right.
target a child.
And then deny it when somebody points it out. Like that's even a greater offense in my mind, because if you're not coachable and the white person is the one saying, oh, that's not racist, or discounting something that's been brought to their attention, that's equally harmful, if not more harmful, because that's when the denial and the doubling down and the, you know, that's when the hostile work environment starts for teachers and stuff too. So.
Well, you've not been a perfect parent. I've not been a perfect parent. I've not been a perfect teacher. I've not been a perfect wife. But when you know better, you do better. And I think that these people out here nowadays, it's like they're not learning how to do better, because they're not reflecting enough. But you know, their pride is so monumental, it's so big a mountain that they can't digress and humble themselves to grow. So we just have, it's not like a win or lose. It's like we got to leave them where they are so we can continue to progress.
Yeah.
If there is no struggle, there is no progress. And you know what? They were there for a minute. They were part of that struggle. But you know what? We can rate progress. Nobody has time for them. Sayonara, see you later, alligator. Nobody has time. And you just let them ride with the daggone crazy selves. You just look at them and you smile and you keep it moving, and know they're going to keep on doing their dirt and their bad, and we got to keep on doing our good.
Yep. Sounds good to me.
And when this COVID is over, we're all going to have a margarita, and it's going to be my treat.
Yes. Okay. I may have to have a margarita on Zoom before then, though, so.
I have a wine date tonight at 8:30. No, it's not a wine. It's a, what's this stuff called? Zero sugar infusions, watermelon, and mint. That's what we have today in celebration of a first day. So we're going to have cocktail party from 8:30 to 9:30 and call it a day.
Well,
I mean, what it is, we got to do NTI in the morning, girl. We better be ready.
Oh, man.
Good luck.
I'm not going to sleep friggin' tonight.
CB oil, what's that stuff called? CB oil?
CBD.
We're going to be on some CB oil.
Go get you some. Well, hey, on that note, I know you guys have other things to do, so thank you again for joining our call.
All right, thank you for the opportunity, okay? And Yvonne, you stay fabulous, girl. You know you look good.
Oh, jeez. I got hair anyway.
Stay commercial. I see you.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I forgot she was even on here. I'm like,
I'm hanging out. I'm listening.
she's getting all the Wendy show.
Oh my gosh!
I look forward to talking to you tomorrow, Bobby Joe. I just got your friend request, so we'll be in touch.
No problem. Thank you all again for having me. I appreciate it so much.
All right, girls, ladies, y'all have an outstanding evening, okay?
And have a great
You too.
You too. Thanks so much, guys. Good night.
All right,
Thank you.
see ya.
Bye-bye.